Welcome again to the S.E.M podcast. I am your host, Zack Hewlett, along with my co-host, Jack Bryce. And today we have our guest is Chad Baucom. Chad, what part of the world you calling from tonight?
I'm in Saratoga Springs, Utah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you taking some time. Have you listened to the podcast? You familiar with kind of the format of everything we're doing?
Yeah, I've listened to a few episodes. I saw one of my companions, Quinn Cofer, was on, and then I served around Christian Lucas, so I listened to his.
Okay.
And then I met Elder O'Brien right at the end of my mission, so I listened to, or right at the end of his mission, right when I started. So I listened to some of his too. So yeah, it's been awesome. I love what you guys are doing, and it's making it exciting to talk about the mission again and relive all these awesome experiences we had.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're excited to hear yours. Quick reminder, we'll just touch on before the mission, getting your call, go back to life after the mission and what you've been up to since then, and then we'll go back to Scotland. So you're up, Chad.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, great to meet you guys. I don't think we met on the mission because I served from June 2007 to May 2009. So were either of
Okay.
you guys out during that time?
No, I went home the first week of January 07, so you missed me by 6 months.
Gotcha.
I got married like 3 weeks after you got there.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Good for you, Jack. Well, so it's great to meet you. Yeah, because I don't think we've met before. So yeah, I'm excited to be on. So before I jump into it, I'm wearing a Scotland jersey. This is
nice.
as far as I could get with my wife. I told her I wanted to wear my kilt and a Scotland shirt and a Jimmy hat. And she wouldn't let me. She's like, "You can't do that." And I was like, "You're probably not even going to watch this." And she's like, "It's just too embarrassing though. You can't wear that." So I'm sorry. I know you guys probably would have loved that, but has anybody worn their kilt yet on this?
No,
We
I
haven't
had a CU Jimmy hat either. I've got a couple of them. I'm gonna have to get that out.
Yeah, that's disappointing considering this is a Scotland podcast and no one's worn a kilt. So sorry about that. But
first one to represent. Come on.
Yeah. I like the concept. Let's say that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, so I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I grew up in an area called Sugar House, in Salt Lake City. A fun fact about the area I grew up in: when I was 5, there was a movie filmed on my street, and it was based in the early 1960s about baseball. And so they filmed this movie, and we got to be extras in it. We were in this scene where they have a barbecue for the 4th of July, and we're like, "This is fun." I was only 5, really young, but I was like, "This is great."
No way.
And then it ended up being a smash hit, The Sandlot. And so that was filmed. So if you've seen The Sandlot, you've seen the street I grew up on in my house.
That's awesome.
Wait, hang on a second. Okay, real quick.
Grandma Zack.
What? Yeah, yes. So I have some history with The Sandlot too. I was not in the film, but where did they film the scene for the fireworks?
They filmed it on Bryan Avenue.
Okay.
So Bryan Avenue, it's like just below 21st East and just north of 17th South.
Yeah.
In Salt Lake City.
That's crazy. So you're a Highland High kid, right?
We actually were just outside of the border of Highland, so I went to East.
Okay. So this is going to blow your mind. My grandparents lived on Logan Avenue in one of the cul-de-sacs just south of 17th East. So
nice. Yeah, that's right by where I live.
The street was literally the next street over from my grandparents' house. And I was told this, I wasn't there or watched it, but I was told that they filmed the scene where the stepdad and Scott play catch kitty corner from my grandparents' backyard. So it was in one of the houses along the street. But yeah, so I've walked by the pink house hundreds of times. That's crazy that you grew up on that street. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's right. So the pink house is where Smalls lives, but then when he goes inside and in the backyard, it's a few houses up the street from me, which I guess is kitty corner from your grandparents.
Yeah,
are your grandparents the Hewletts or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, so this will probably date me a little bit, but so my grandmother passed away when I was a junior in high school. So that was 2003. Okay. And she was a widow since the early 80s. My grandfather passed away before I was born. So whether your parents are still there or we're in the same ward, they probably knew my grandmother, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I must have seen her because I grew up there my whole childhood on that street.
Okay,
So
that's
really
yep.
crazy.
awesome.
What a
Yeah,
small world.
Totally
yeah,
jealous.
really small world.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Chad. I totally derailed your story. So come
That
back
was awesome.
to your story about starring in the Sandlot.
No, that's my claim to fame. I was the star of the movie at 5. It was awesome. You
Cool.
can see a brief glimpse of me. But yeah, so I went to East High School. I enjoyed playing sports there. I played football and basketball. And another movie trivia was in between my junior and senior year, they filmed High School Musical at East. And so we went to go practice basketball that summer, and they wouldn't let us go into the gym because they were filming this movie. And we're like, what is this stupid movie? Let us practice. Like, you can't just take our gym. They didn't tell our coach or anything. They just went and took it. And then it turned out to be this hit. So that was kind of fun.
No, it's
It's
amazing.
Yeah, so I got my, I'll go jump to the mission call. So when I went and got my, well, I guess before I got my mission call, I went to the U. I was there for a semester. And then as I was, go Utes, yes, go Utes.
That's right. Go Utes. Gotta shout them out every time I get it, Jack. Sorry.
There's not many people from the mission. When I was in Scotland, there wasn't many people who were Utes fans. It was like 1 or 2 others of all the missionaries that I met. So I'm glad you're a Ute fan, Zach.
Yeah, you would have really enjoyed serving under President Sister Vriens because that was their thing. Like
every interview, you get the score updates, and
it was so good. Loved the Vriens. Anyway, I digress.
That's awesome. Yeah, I never got a chance to serve under them, but the Fredricks luckily were huge Utah fans too. So
Oh, I didn't realize that.
When I was there, they were telling me how we won the Sugar Bowl and beat Alabama and all that stuff. I missed that whole season, which was sad.
Oh man.
Yeah. So anyways, so I went and put in my papers, and I thought I'd get a call. I heard of people who said they wanted to go fast, and they went in 2 months. So I was like, oh great, I'll get my call. I'll go in 2 months. So I didn't do a second semester at the U. I just did 1 semester and then was getting my call that winter. But when I got it, I didn't get it. It wasn't 2 months. It was 4 months out. And I realized, oh, I'm not leaving until June. I probably could have just done another semester of school. So I kind of was sad about that. But I was like, I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure something amazing is going to happen the last couple of months of my mission. I hope. So we'll see how that goes. So I'll have to come back to that later. But I was all excited about that. But I got the mission call and got all excited. And then my parents were like, Fredrick, that we know some Fredricks. We had some Fredricks in our ward, and I didn't think about it, but they're like, that looks a lot like Paul Fredrick. And Paul and Andrea Fredrick had taught me in Sunday school when I was a kid, all growing up. And they were awesome. We all of his kids loved them. They ended up moving across the street from us. They were up the street a little ways, and they moved across the street. And so we kind of grew up with them as mentors and the cool young couple in the ward, And so we saw as they had kids and kind of their family grew as we were in that ward. And so we went out to dinner to celebrate. And then they were night owls. Every night they'd be outside till midnight working on their house and doing yard work. So I went over there at 10 or 11 that night after I got my call, knocked on their door and said, hey, do you know this Tom Fredrick and Barbara Fredrick? And they said, yeah. Paul's like, yeah, that's my dad. And I was like, that's awesome.
Wow.
And so we were all excited about that. I mean, I was super excited. My family was, because it's oh, we got to go serve. I was all worried that I was going to have a terrible mission president and they'd be super mean or something. And so when I had that connection, and Paul was so nice, and I was like, this is going to be awesome. We're going to have your parents as our mission president. So he was super excited, and that was a cool kind of connection we made.
Well, that's awesome.
So I had my mission call, and I was getting ready to go. And it was kind of a miracle. I ended up being able to go. So I got to share this story. So I got my call, and then my buddy had his call for a while, and he went, I think, just a few weeks after I got my call. And so we were hanging out. He actually got set apart. And the night he got set apart, we went and hung out together, and we're just kind of saying goodbye. And we actually went to Highland High's football field, where I don't know why we went there. They were our rival school, but we went and we were just hanging out there and kind of hanging out in the Sugar House Park area. And so we're chilling there, and all of a sudden one of my buddies picks up a rock and just throws it through a window at the high school. And I want to be clear, none of us were down. We weren't there to vandalize. We weren't there to do anything like that. we were just hanging out and saying goodbye to our buddy. He's leaving for his mission the next morning. Like, this is his last night. And so he throws a rock through the window. I'm like, why would you do that? And he's like, I don't know. And like, it was just a really dumb thing. We're like, that was really stupid. And we look up, and there was in the parking lot up above the football field, there was someone looking at us. So we're like, we better get out of here. Like, we're going to get in trouble. So we go and run. All of a sudden, there's all these sirens all over the place. We hop a fence, and cop cars just pull up. They're right in the park, just like waiting for us. They pull up with a canine crew right there. We all just like stop, and we're like, we're not running from dogs. Like, holy cow, like, we're busted. When my friend who threw the rock jumps over the fence and hides, doesn't get caught. The rest of us get caught. We give the cops our names. I don't know if we were like officially arrested, but we like give them all of our names, and they look at our IDs, and then they're like, hey, go home. So we go home and don't think much of it. Like a week before I go on my mission, I'm on a trip in California with some of those same friends. And they call me and they say, we all just got letters. We have to go to court on June 6th. And June 6th was the exact same day I was reporting to the MTC. We flew out June 5th and got there June 6th. And I said, are you kidding me? Yeah. So I was like, are you serious? I am in so much trouble. And I was like, so I'm going to have a letter. I'm going to have my mission delayed. My buddy's on his mission. He's going to probably have to come home, like deal with this. This is so stupid. Why did my friend throw that rock? And so I get home and there's no letter. I didn't receive a letter at all. And then we talked to my friend's parents and we're just like, hey, do you guys get any letters? Like, we were really vague about it. And my friend who was on a mission, and they're like, no, we didn't get any letter. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And so I'm like, all right, great. And so I just went on the mission and was able to go. And my buddy didn't get called home from his mission. It's kind of
wow. That's unreal.
Yeah. So okay. So I'll jump to after the mission now, right? So where you want me to go?
Yeah.
So after the mission, I get home. I go back up to the U. I apply for a job. I had a few friends that worked at this aftercare program, which was like elementary schools that for kids who had to stay after elementary school, whose parents needed them to stay there. And I paid pretty well. And you just basically like play with kids at recess and like help them with their homework. And I was like, that sounds fun. Like, I like kids. I'll do that. So I applied for that, and they do a background check, and I get a letter saying that there's a warrant out for my arrest from 2 years ago for loitering at this place, at this high school. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And so I go to court. I guess my buddies had like gotten off when they all went to court, and they're like, yeah, this window got broken. No one ever paid for it. And I was like, I didn't do it. And they're like, yeah, but you gotta pay for it. Or if you want to get a lawyer and defend yourself. And I was like, I'm not going to get a lawyer and go through all that. So I paid for the window, and then the school still hired me, and they let me work with the kids because I got it taken off, and I had to get it all expunged from my record and stuff from this experience before the mission.
Oh my gosh. What school was it?
So I went to East, and our rival was Highland, and it was Highland that we were at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was curious because I did that while I was at school at the U at one of the elementary schools on 1900 East. And I don't remember.
Oh, you're asking what school I taught at?
Yeah. What school you did the job at?
I was saying we broke the Highland window, but no, the Ensign Elementary School up in the Avenues in Salt Lake.
Okay. Yeah, I did an after school program when I was at the U as well, and it was a lot of fun, but man, it was a lot of work. The kids treated me like a jungle gym because I'm a little bit bigger than most people.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I taught with 3 women, and I was the only guy, so all the kids wanted to play sports and do stuff. And
same thing as me, man.
Yeah,
quite a parallel. Unbelievable.
That's awesome. It was fun though. We did Highland games for one activity, and I taught them all how to do like the caber toss and the rock put and all that stuff. It was a good time.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, so I finished my degree at the U. I played rugby one semester up there, which was a lot of fun. I'd never played before, but it was so big in Scotland. I was like, I got to try this. So that was a lot of fun. I studied accounting. And while I was there, I started a couple companies and kind of liked the entrepreneurship stuff. But I ended up getting my degree in accounting, and I worked for an accounting firm called PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and interned there. I got married a year after I got home. And then my wife and I, we went and interned in DC for a summer. And then we ended up I worked 4 years in Los Angeles. We lived just outside LA in South Pasadena, which was awesome. It was such a fun place to live. We were like a few miles away. Is there more connections, Zach?
I lived in Glendale for 2 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
My ward, I was neighbored the South Pasadena ward, which, my word, the parallels are uncanny. It's unbelievable.
We like barely missed each other's paths over and over again.
Yeah. You're like a mirror image of me, just a few years behind. That's unreal.
That's crazy. What years were you in Glendale?
We moved there summer of 11, and then we moved back like the spring of 13. But we lived in Glendale for the first year, and then moved to the west side because I did sports, like administrative stuff there, and so I got my first full-time job at UCLA. And driving from Glendale to Westwood was not a picnic, I can tell you. It was unreal.
Yeah. No, that sounds rough. So that's cool that you worked at UCLA. We live just a few miles south of the Rose Bowl, where UCLA Stadium is, and where the Rose Bowl game happens each January 1st. And we were just about a mile south of where the Rose Parade starts. So we would just walk up the street to the Rose Parade and watch it take off, and then walk back down to the house. It was such a cool experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah, highly recommend California. Between that and like Disneyland and Universal and the beach, and there's just so much to do. It's an awesome place.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So then I decided I didn't want to do accounting anymore. So I went back to school and did grad school at BYU actually, and got into product management. And so that's what I work in now. When I was in grad school, I did an internship for Verizon in New Jersey. Let me guess, you lived in New Jersey as well? No, okay.
You went to BYU and that threw off your university.
Yeah, that really skewed things. That was hard because I'm a big Utah fan and still am. But
here's my funny story. I did grad school at Gonzaga, so I'm like the double-barreled BYU teams that BYU doesn't like.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. I interned in Jersey for Verizon. That was fun. We were just outside of New York City, so that was a really fun summer going into New York a lot. It was a good time. And then came back, worked there for a while during COVID, and so I was able to stay remote in Utah while I worked for them. And then I got a job last year for Gab Wireless, and I work. They're a company. They do safe tech for kids, like phones and watches. So I work on the Gab Watch as a product manager, and that's a fun place. I feel like I'm Tom Hanks from Big. I just play with toys all day and test them on my kids, and my kids tell me what we should do, and I take their advice. So it's a lot of fun. We do a little more, customer research than just my kids, but it's fun that the kids have some input on that. Awesome. So I'm married, live in Saratoga Springs. We have 4 kids. Noah's 8, Liv is 5, Miley's 4, and Emma's 1. And yeah, we have a lot of fun. I coach my son's football and basketball teams, and that's been a lot of fun. We had a game tonight, so it's a good time.
That's awesome.
So that was kind of a long background. So sorry for the long background, but
that was perfect. I'm sorry. Most of it was me saying I did that too.
That's awesome. We're gonna have to hang out and swap stories.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Chad, take us to the MTC in Scotland.
Okay, so the MTC, we fly over there. I walk in, and it's all the Americans walk in because we all flew over together. And as we walk in, all of the English missionaries walk in, and the other European missionaries, and just like stare at us. And it's like we're like on either side of each other, and we had like a stare down. I don't know why. It was like the Americans are here, and everyone just stared at each other down. And I thought it was going to be like a scene from West Side Story. Like I thought everyone was going to start like snapping or something, because we kind of just stood there. And it was me with the Americans, and Elder Waite was like the leader of the English missionaries, and we kind of just stared at each other, and then we just made small talk, like awkward small talk, and it was like, are we going to be friends? Because they had been there, I don't know if it was just that morning or for a day or something, but they'd been there for a bit and had like formed some camaraderie. So they were like, here come these outsiders, and how's this going to work? But we got along great with them. We had a great time there. The MTC was amazing. I mean, I'm a huge Utah fan. So when I gave my farewell talk, I was saying how I knew it was a calling of God because I'd never had to set foot in Provo, and I just got to go straight to England and go to the Preston England MTC. And I was so grateful for it. Totally backfired when I ended up going to BYU and living in Provo. And then I realized Provo was actually pretty cool, and BYU is not so bad. But I loved it over there. It was so fun. I had my companion there was named Tim Reedhead. He served his mission in England, so he didn't go up to Scotland, but he was from Snowflake, Arizona, and he was hilarious. We called him Elder Happy. He just would joke around all the time and was always laughing. We had such a fun time there. We'd go down every night at the end of the night and eat crumpets downstairs. Did you guys ever do that? Go down and get some crumpets?
Oh, I ate more toast there than I probably have in my entire life.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
was
know
like,
about I don't know about the crumpets though. That's pretty cool.
we'd never had crumpets before, a lot of us Americans. So we every night would go down and just cover those things in butter, and they would just melt into the inside. And we loved it. And we did all these things to get like special permission to do things, right? Are you a big crumpet guy, Jack?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say I discovered it in the MTC though. I think it was my first area before I had crumpets.
You know, we discovered them early, and we were like addicts. We would ask for special permission for all sorts of things when we were there. And President Sorensen was our MTC president. He was awesome. He just let us do everything. So he was like, "Yeah, you guys can go down and stay up a little bit later and go get some crumpets." So we'd go stuff our faces right before bed. And then one night it was like 9 or 9:30, and we go and like knock on his door, and he comes to his door in like shorts and just his garment top. And he's like, "What's up, guys?" And we're like, "We noticed there's a church like just next door, right? Like right by the temple, like the stake center there. And there's a basketball hoop in there. Can we get keys and just go do our morning workout and play basketball over there?" And he's like, "Sure." And he like goes and gets his keys and gives them to us. So we'd go play basketball every morning over in that gym.
That would have been a dream.
Yeah, it was awesome. And we played a bunch of soccer, you know, we had exercise time or something, and we'd play soccer. But we just loved it. And we would always sing, we'd run around the Englishmen and English women and sing the national anthem and show them our true American spirit. They hated us, but it was a good time. So yeah, we had a lot of fun, and I love those missionaries that I served in the MTC with. We got along really well. Elder Waite was a Scotland missionary who you'll definitely have to have on your show, on your podcast. But we never served together in Scotland, but served around each other a lot, and we had a lot of fun together.
What's his first name?
Sean
Okay.
Waite. I think he's from Leeds.
Okay, nice.
In England. Yeah. And then a great story from the MTC too was did you guys go tracting when you were there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to go tracting, right, in one of the towns near Preston.
Yep.
So we went tracting, and they gave us a few Book of Mormons, and we went around, and me and Elder Reedhead were together. We went around and handed them out, and we just had this incredible experience. We went to a few doors. Most people just yelled at their door, like they'd have their door open and say, "No, go away," and we didn't even get a chance to like knock on the door. But we placed a few Book of Mormons to people, and then we weren't seeing much success. So we like, not many people were listening or wanted to chat with us. So we stopped and we just said a prayer and said, you know, we're just young missionaries, no idea what we're doing, no idea how to teach or anything, but we just said, "Heavenly Father, help us find the right place to go." And then we looked at the map, and we just both looked at it together, and then we both kind of pointed to this one street, and we're like, "Let's go there." And we both felt good about it. So we go down the street. The first house, before we had a chance to knock, they yell at us and tell us to go away. And we're like, "Okay, then we've received false revelation." And then we go to the next house and knock on the door, and this girl answers it, who's about our age. She's like 18 or 19. And she just sat there and listened to us. And we just taught her the first lesson. And I'll never forget, I went into the Joseph Smith story, which we'd all, you know, recently memorized. And I just started telling her the Joseph Smith story. And as soon as I said pillar of light, like a tear just went down her cheek. And then we just finished the story. I finished the story, and my companion finished teaching. We were teaching together, and by the end, she was just like bawling and crying. And she didn't really say anything. We didn't do a good job of like asking her questions or like, you know, asking how she's feeling. We just, you know, went through the whole thing, and she was crying, and we got her name and said, "We'll send the missionaries over," and created a referral card. And she said, "Yeah, I'd love to have them over." And that was kind of it. But I remember that feeling that I had. I'd never felt the Spirit that strong. And I thought, her name was Rachel Taylor. So I need to track her down and see if she ever got baptized, because I was never able to follow up with the missionaries there.
Yeah.
I remember thinking at that moment, I thought, you know, I'm going to Scotland. I'm probably not going to teach hardly anybody. I'm probably not going to get any baptisms, maybe one or two, right? But no matter what happens, the whole mission is worth it for this one experience, because it was like a life-changing moment, right? When you feel the Spirit teaching like that, it's just an incredible feeling.
Oh man, that's cool.
So that was the MTC, and then we jumped on a I think a van took us to a train, and then we took a train up to Edinburgh.
Yeah, that's really great.
And went up there. One of the first things we did was we climbed Pratt's Hill, and went up there and dedicated our missions. And that was a really cool experience, being at the top of that hill, and where Orson Pratt was, and where he asked for whatever 200 baptisms or 400 or whatever he asked for, and then went out and got them, and dedicated Scotland as a mission. So it was really cool to be up there and do that, dedicate our missions. And then met President Fredrick and Sister Fredrick, and they are just awesome. They're incredible. We still see them from time to time. They live near Skyline High School.
Nice.
And so we had the reunions with them after, and we still see them from time to time, and they're awesome. Yeah, Tom Fredrick is just like a solid guy, like just like solid earth type person. And Babs, as I call her, Barbara, his wife, is just hilarious. We love joking around with Babs, and she was just incredible. She was really fun. So it was great to meet them. And then I got to my first area, and Quinn Coford trained me. You guys both know Quinn, right?
Oh, I know Quinn very well.
Yeah, so Quinn,
I met him through this.
You met him for the first, yeah.
Yeah.
Quinn was
It's great.
a greenie in Peterhead when I was his zone leader in Aberdeen before I went home.
Nice.
So that's how I got to know Quinn.
Yeah, I heard his him come on your guys' show. He did a great job. He was so funny. He was great to serve with. I have to have a bit of a rebuttal, but not really. He talked a lot about my terrible driving. I heard that part, and he called me out for that, and I can't really dispute that. We get there, I unpack all my stuff. I'm like, what's going on today? And we're like just kind of hanging out for a bit, and all of a sudden he goes, "Okay, it's time to go." And I was like, "Oh, where are we going?" And he goes, "Oh, we have a dinner appointment. We can't be late. We got to be there in 5 minutes." And I go, "Okay, great." And he hands me the keys, and he goes, "And you're driving." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "You got to drive." And I go, "No." I go, "What kind of car do we have?" And it was like a Corsa, I think, or a Corsica, one of those Vauxhalls.
Yeah.
And he gives me the keys, and he goes, I go, "No, you got to drive. You've been here for what, like a year? Like, you should be the one driving." And he's like, "No, I failed my driving test." So he makes fun of me for being a bad driver. He didn't pass his driving test. And so he's like, "I didn't pass it. You got to drive. And we got to get there fast." And I said, "Is it an automatic?" And he goes, "No, it's a clutch." I go, "I've never driven a clutch before." And so he's like, "You got to drive this clutch. And yeah, you sit on the wrong side of the car, right? You sit on the left side of the car. So you have to be doing the stick shift with your left hand. You sit on the right, stick shift on the left.
Uh-huh.
You're on the left side of the road. Yep. There's roundabouts everywhere. And the street sizes are should all be one way. They shouldn't be two ways. They should be one way. And then on top of that, cars park on both sides. Two wheels are on the sidewalk, right? But two wheels are in the street. So it's like, it's smaller than a one way and two way, and it's a two-way traffic." And I'm like, I'm from Salt Lake, where like everything is wide, Brigham Young built everything so a wagon could flip a U-turn. And you're telling me to drive through this, and I'm used to my body being on the other side of the car. So every time I'm driving, I'm veering to the wrong side, right? So he's like, "Yep, we got to go. Hurry up." And I'm like, "Okay." So we get in the car, and I'm driving, and I'm like, I can't do all this. I don't know how to use this extra, clutch with my foot. And so I'm going to do the clutch. You tell me when to push the clutch in, and you just shift for me, because I can't. I'm going to kill us. Like, we're going to die. And I wasn't a bad driver. I was a fine driver, like in America, in an automatic, So he's doing the stick shift for me, and he's just terrified. Like, he just knows we're going to die, and we both kind of accept we're going to hit stuff. So I'm just nailing curbs. I'm nailing garbage cans. Like, I'm stalling as we go into these like 5-lane roundabouts, and like trees and houses are on the inside of this roundabout. And I'm like, what is going on? I've been through one little roundabout at the U, and that's it in my life. And so now there's like stoplights and all this crap going on. And it was just a nightmare. So unbelievably, I never got like in a real accident. Never hit another car or hit like a street post or anything like that. Never did damage to the car. I just hit some sidewalks and some garbage cans. So for the most part, it was okay, but yeah, it was pretty wild.
What
But
area
eventually
was
got
this
that down.
in?
Oh yeah, this was in East Kilbride.
Okay.
So East Kilbride, just outside of Glasgow.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Quinn
I
didn't
taught a
go
couple
into
of my
that.
companions to drive, but it was out in the country, Peterhead.
Yeah, it sounds a lot more safe.
And Zack knew how to drive stick already, so
Yeah,
man,
Jack
that would
did
be
the same thing to
terrifying.
me when I was a greenie. He's just like, "All right, here's the keys," and I was like, "What?" But yeah, lucky for me, I had a stick shift all through high school, and so that was my like go-to. But the orientation of doing it backwards, because the gearbox is still the same.
Yeah.
First is up in the top left. You're doing with your left hand. It was totally different, and had to get used to it. But I
Yeah.
did. It was fun.
Eventually, yeah. I kept driving on the right side of the road, and he would grab the wheel and pull it back, and yeah, it was a nightmare. But I got to tell a funny story about Coford. So at Missionaries, I had a girlfriend in high school. So she said she wanted to wait for me, and I was like, sure. Like I figured, she might want to date, but she's like, no, I want to wait, and I was like, that's awesome, that's great. So she would send me boxes and packages, and I'd share those with Quinn and my other companions. And I brought out pictures, and it was crazy to me how obsessed missionaries were with pictures. Like every time I was around another missionary, they're like, "Do you have pictures? Oh, you have a girlfriend? Can I see pictures? Can I see pictures?" And it was like kind of weird. I was like, I don't know, like why? Like I wasn't used to like looking at buddies' pictures. This was before like when I started serving my mission, iPhones came out like right then, and so it was like we weren't used to having pictures all the time. But missionaries just loved them, so they're always looking through them. So Quinn's looking through my pictures of my girlfriend and her friends and our friends, so other girls too. So we saw this one girl named Kaylee, and he's like, "Oh, like Kaylee's really pretty. I want to date her when I get back." And he'd always talk about Kaylee and joke around about how cute she was. And so one day at the end of the night, we're hanging out. I'm like filling out the area book or something, and he walks in and nothing but his garments, and he's wearing his glasses, and he had a retainer, and he goes, "Come on, Elder, how is Kaylee going to say no to this?" And right as he says it, all of this drool comes out of his mouth inadvertently and just splashes on the ground. And I was just dying of laughter. And then he got all embarrassed and started laughing because he was trying to be funny, but didn't mean to drool everywhere. And oh man. So I guess him and Kaylee didn't work out, but I'm glad he's happily married now.
Jeez Louise.
And he was really skinny on the mission, right? I think after the mission he like bulked up and got pretty buff, but it was hilarious.
He was like a pencil.
Yeah. So yeah, when I went out there, I pictured a mission being like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be in Scotland. So every house will be like, 500 yards away from each other, like a mile, and everyone's going to be on farms. And then I'll just be walking through, like pushing sheep out of my way as I go to the next house, and we'll just knock doors all day. And that's going to be my mission, and that's great. But we get there, and they're so focused on member-missionary work. It was all about member work, and the people of Scotland were just awesome. I couldn't believe how much missionary work they did, and I remember thinking I have never even met the missionaries, maybe once or twice in Utah, because they covered several stakes, and you never really saw them. I think they came over for dinner twice in my life, and definitely didn't ask us to do missionary work. Really, they maybe said like share your testimony in family home evening or something. So it was incredible that these members as missionaries would invite us over, and we would teach them how to do missionary work, and they'd invite their friends to come learn from us. And it seemed a lot more beneficial doing missionary work that way than just knocking doors all day, because I think we found a lot more people that way. But I didn't think that was normal, so I was like, no, we got to go knock, and let's go place Book of Mormons. I did it at the MTC. Come on, Coford, let's go knock some doors. And he was like, what are you talking about? And he was not down. And so we did it like once or twice. Then I saw it didn't quite work the same way in Scotland as it did in England. But anytime like I ran into, like, the mission was pretty intense, and anytime I like ran into something kind of like, oh, this is different than I thought a mission would be, I thought back to the first zone conference I had, and President Fredrick talked about, he gave like a Harold B. Lee quote. I believe it was Harold B. Lee, and it said something along the lines of, even if you have a better way of doing things, do it your leader's way, and you'll be blessed. As long as the leader's not completely leading you astray or anything. Just if it's two different ways of doing things, do it your leader's way, and you'll be blessed. And I saw that over and over again on my mission. That when I listened to the leaders in the mission, it definitely was blessed, and we definitely were blessed as we did member missionary work. So another surprise of the mission is we were going to visit a recent convert in this first area, and I look over, and this kid he's 4 years old, couldn't be more than 4, had a cigarette butt and was sucking on the cigarette butt, and had a bottle of wine and was drinking the wine and trying to get his cigarette butt. And I'm guessing he just found the bottle of wine on the ground and it was empty in the cigarette butt. But I was like, where are we? Like, what is going on? Like, this is crazy. And I saw stuff like that all the time in the mission, but it was so sad for these kids. This little 4-year-old, like, doing probably what he's seen or whatever. Like, oh, like, I'm seeing people doing this, I'm going to do this too. And they definitely start that stuff at a young age. So it's hard to.
There was a part member family that explained to me the law was that you could give your kid wine in the home at age 5. And it's like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
That's
I didn't
different.
know that.
And then they did. While we were there at a DA. The non-member parents like, here, son, try this. Okay.
That is wild. That is wild.
At least they explained it to you, so you weren't just like, "Oh my gosh, that is egregious error."
I was still, oh my gosh.
Yep. That is wild. So the first area was awesome. We spent a lot of time with the McNally family. They had a couple of boys, and Stephen McNally I think he was 16, and he'd come out teaching with us all the time. And for a while, I basically lived with the youth because Coford was always going on exchanges. So our zone leaders were Elder Lucas and Elder Stringfellow, and we were always going on exchanges. So I spent a lot of time in Glasgow, downtown where they were serving, and we were on exchanges a bunch. And then Coford got called to go serve in Edinburgh, whitewash Edinburgh. And so the last 2 weeks he was gone. So I was this brand new missionary trying to run this area with sometimes a youth was with me all day. Other times I'd have another missionary with me, but it was pretty out of control. So it was baptism by fire really quick in that area. But it was a lot of fun. And I got to share this story about when we baptized Graham Buchanan. So when I first got there, a girl named Lisa Brown got baptized that they had taught. And then we were teaching Graham Buchanan, and his wife was a member, but he had come along really well, and Coford had taught him for a while. And so I'm on exchanges in Glasgow with Stringfellow, and Elder Lucas was with Coford in Airdrie at a baptism. And Graham Buchanan went to the baptism and felt the Spirit, and they said, the font is already full. Do you want to, or I think they'd actually started draining it, but they go, the font's full. Do you want to get baptized right now? And his baptism date was in a week or two in East Kilbride, but they're like, why wait? And he's like, yeah, I want to do it. And so they called me, and the way we were going to do it was we were going to baptize him together because he had bad knees and he was a big dude. And so we had to have both of me and Coford in the font to help get him down and get him back up because he couldn't bend his knees at all. And so we needed both of us to lift him up. And so they call Stringfellow and they say, you guys got to get up here right now to Airdrie. We're baptizing Graham, and Chad's got to be here, And so we take off, and Elder O'Brien was the AP, I think, and he was in Glasgow with us for some reason. And so he just takes off in his car, and Stringfellow is like, hey, catch up to him. And O'Brien's going it had to have been 115 on the freeway. And once again, I'm not used to the stick and the driving and all this stuff, but freeway was easier because you'd get in fifth gear or whatever and just go. So he's flying, and it was like a scene from a movie. Stringfellow loved classical music, and he was playing Carmina Burana full blast. And that's the one that's dun, 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 dun. So it's this music, and I'm going 100. I was going over 100. O'Brien was pulling away from me, and Stringfellow just so calm was just catch up to him. Catch up to him, Elder Baucom. Don't lose him, because we didn't know where we were going. And it it was like a scene from a movie. I felt like a James Bond movie or some intense scene where it's like classical music in the background and one dude just talking calmly as all this chaos is going on. And I'm like, we're going to get arrested. Like, I'm going to get my driver's license taken away. But we fly up there. Luckily, we didn't get a ticket. We get to the baptism. And this is when Kofor decided to tell me I was going to be the one performing the ordinance. The whole time I thought I was just going to be helping him. And I didn't know the baptismal prayer. I hadn't memorized it yet. And so I'm freaking out, like trying to like learn the words, like learn Graham's full name. And I'm like, the first it was just out of control. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. Like, what? I got to get them all the way under. I got to say the words right. I'm so nervous. But we go in there and do the ordinance. And then Kofor, he goes all the way under. And Kofor, good thing he was there because I could not have lifted him with one hand. He's there with both his hands. And between the two of us, we get him back up and do the baptism. And then yeah, it was a great experience. But then in East Kilbride, the bishop is furious at us because he's like, we had a whole baptismal, schedule plan, a whole baptismal program planned for Graham, and we were gonna like welcome him into the ward, and none of his ward members were there. It was just like him and his wife. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And so yeah, they didn't. He didn't like us too much. So for the next like week or so, I think I was in Glasgow most of the time, and Lucas was there trying to smooth things over with Kofor, with the bishop, because he was so mad. But that's kind of how the mission was. It was just out of control, like 100 miles per hour all the time, just go, go, go. And it was like, it was just like unbelievable. Like this, it was like just spiritual to the max and just such a cool experience. So that was the first companion with Kofor.
Wow.
Yeah. So he moved on. I stayed in East Kilbride, and Leo Humphreys came and was my companion in East Kilbride. He's from Verwood, England. And he was awesome. I was all worried because I was with, Kofor and Stringfellow and Lucas so much, and they were all so intense. And then I'm like, what if this guy's like apostate or something, right? Like my second companion, what if he's not into the way the mission's going and the member work and the exact obedience? But he was awesome. He was great. And it was kind of funny because I'd only been out 6 weeks. He was out 4.5 months. And so we were super young companionship, but we had a great time and did a lot of stupid stuff. So the first stupid thing we did is Lisa Brown she was about 16, I think. She'd gotten baptized right when I got there. And then Stephanie Durning was another recent convert, and she was 16 or 17 and had been baptized, I don't know, like 6 weeks before I got there or something. So 2 recent converts, and we'd go over there and we'd teach them with, I always brought a joint teach, even though they were both members. We had to, bring another male with us. So we'd always go over there and teach them. And they said, we have some friends that would love to learn from you guys, I think. Like we have one friend in particular that should be interested, but she's not going to come to our house for lessons. So we want to go ice skating and have you guys go ice skating with us and our friends. And so I was like, 2 missionaries going ice skating with 4 like 17-year-old girls, like pretty close in age. I was like, this is like a double date, and this is just stupid. But we're like, well, but they might be interested, and this was a creative way to find people. So we go on this double date, and we get our ice skates. We didn't wear our mission badges. We were supposed to wear our mission badges all the time, right? But I was like, this will look so bad if we have our. So they say to always wear your mission badge because then you don't do something stupid because you have your badge on. They don't say take it off and do something stupid, right? So we should have known that, but we didn't realize. So we go ice skating with these girls, and it was fun, but it was pretty awkward. And their one friend that they're like, she'll for sure be interested in the gospel. She wasn't interested at all. They had another friend named Heather Falds, and they're like, she won't be interested, definitely not, but whatever. And as we're ice skating and talking to them, Heather was the one that was super interested in it. So it was awesome. So we taught her, and she ended up getting baptized, which was awesome. And she progressed so much. And just seeing some of these people who gave up so much, like Stephanie Durning, like her family did not want her to join the church when she joined before I got there. And she like kind of gave up like family relationships to join the church, like with their parents and stuff. And I think rekindled afterwards, I hope. But like, yeah, it was like, these people gave up a lot, and Heather Falls was the same way. I think Stephanie's parents were maybe a little more supportive. Heather's not as much, but they eventually signed off and let her get baptized. But it was just incredible to see these people just sacrifice so much for the gospel, and the faith that they had was absolutely incredible. So then after this ice skating thing, we get letters from these girls saying that they're into us, the recent converts. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get e-transfer. We're both going to get e-transfer. This area's going to get whitewashed. We might get sent home. So they sent us these nice letters. They were super sweet, but we're like, sorry, we're missionaries. And I still had a girlfriend and stuff. But after that, Leo started calling Stephanie. We always call her Stephanie. He started calling her Steph. And he's like, hey, Steph. And she was kind of into him. I think she'd written him a letter or something. And needless to say, now they're married. So they got married after the mission. And I think he lives in Glasgow. I looked him up. I think he works for Lego, maybe, in Glasgow. And I think they live in East Kilbride. So we'll have to have him on to tell the rest of the story, because I just know they met up after. But I was like, something's going to happen here, and we should get e-transferred. But I don't think nothing happened on the mission at all. Everything was good that way. But I think a kind of a crush formed, and then married her after. I think she's just a couple of years younger than us.
That's how the church grows, right? Especially in that part of the world.
Yeah. But that was a good time. I think so. In East Kilbride, I first got introduced to Ned's. It's the most like educated name for like such a stupid thing. Like such a sophisticated name for such a, like here we'd call them punks or something like that, right? And Ned stood for non-educated delinquents, I believe.
Yep.
And I was like, that's such a weird, like, why would you give them such a proper name? But only in the UK, right? And so
it's only in Scotland, actually.
Only in Scotland, yeah. Okay.
Yep. In England,
so
they're chavs.
Oh, that's right. I think I did hear that. Chavs. That even sounds like too proper. Like chav. Like Chive is like a butler's name, like Chive the butler. And it's like, oh, the Chavs, and oh, the Neds, those non-educated delinquents out there. It's like so proper. But we didn't have any crazy experiences with them. They just had like the steps in their head and the weird haircuts, and then the track outfits with the one leg pulled up, right?
Oh my gosh.
So them in their track outfits, I was like, those kids would get beat up if they were in America, but they're like the gangsters here, which is so funny because they would just get worked if they were, no offense, Ned's.
The way that you just described that was like the picture of a Ned in like a dictionary.
Burberry hat.
It is.
It's right.
Yeah.
Burberry hat, Burberry scarf.
It just blew my mind that they were like supposed to be the scary ones.
Their trainers on, always ready for a football match. Oh my gosh, that's
it's
so
like,
funny.
Please come to America. Please come to Salt Lake and deal with the Tongan Crip gang in West Salt Lake, or come to LA and deal with the Crips and the Bloods in South Central Los Angeles, and you guys will get destroyed. But I just thought it was funny because I thought they were so cool, and I was like, stay away from them because they'll cut you with a knife. But I thought it was really funny that they were like the tough people. Anywho, so then East Kilbride, I got to mention Jackie Lang. So she was a member. She had 2 kids, and when we met her, she had just gone through a really tough divorce. And her ex-husband, was no longer in the church after the divorce, and she was going through a really tough time. But she just had the best attitude ever. She was like so optimistic and just like got through it, and was still like, I love my husband even though things didn't work out. Like I still love him, and I wish for the best for him. And just like a heart of gold when most people would turn really bitter and upset. She was just incredible and such a good example to her kids. So one time we're over there, and she is asking about my girlfriend, because her name was Jackie as well. And she's like, tell me about this Jackie. And I'll tell her about Jackie and stuff. And she goes, give me her number. And I'm like, I'm not going to give you her phone number. Like, you can't call her right now. That I can't talk to her. That's against the rules. We're trying to be obedient. And she goes, I'm not going to call her now, you idiot. Like, I know the rules. Like, you moron. Like, I love the Scottish people. They're so funny. She's like, you're an idiot. I'm not going to call her. Just give me your number and I'll call her later, and then I'll tell you how it went. And I was like, okay. So I give her number, and she writes it down and then immediately types it in and puts it on speaker. And I'm like, no, and I run out of the room, and I'm all embarrassed. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I can't leave because my companion wasn't leaving. I can't talk to her because I'm going to get in trouble. And luckily, my girlfriend didn't answer. Jackie didn't answer. And she just gets on the phone, and she's like, all right, Jackie, this is Jackie from Scotland, and I'm here with your man. And then just hung up. So I get an email
that's classic Scottish, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was incredible. Oh, it's so funny. So I get an email from my girlfriend after that, and she's like, did somebody named Jackie call me, or is that like one of your friends messing with me that's still in Utah? I was like, no, that was Jackie Lang from Scotland. I'm glad you had a chance to meet her.
Jeez.
Oh man, it was so funny.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so I need to speed up because I don't know, you guys.
Oh, you're fine.
This is going to be a long one, I think. Okay, so I gotta accelerate. So after I'm only with Elder Humphreys for 6 weeks as well. The first year of my mission, I'm with a different companion every 6 weeks, basically. I don't know if they're telling the president they just couldn't stand me. You'll have to ask them if you have them on. Like, what? I even asked the president, like, are they saying something? Because like I'm moving every time. Like there's either a new companion coming in or I'm leaving. But a different companion the whole 6 weeks. I only served with 2 missionaries for 3 months, and the rest were less than that. Sometimes it was a little more than 6 weeks if there was like transfers midway through a transfer or something. But yeah, it was pretty. So I had a lot of companions. So I'll speed up. Okay, so then I'm out 3 months. I moved to Alloa, just outside of Stirling, in the Edinburgh stake. And I've been out 3 months, and I served with Landon Wells, who's been out 1.5 months. So I was just in a companionship where I was out 6 weeks. My companion was out 4.5 months. And then I go to one where I'm out 3 months and he's out 6 weeks. And I'm like, this is going to be just more stupidity. And it was, because when you're young and you don't know what you're doing, a lot of crazy stuff happens. And so Landon Wells, so I served with, he's from Alpine, Utah. And we had a great time. One example of something stupid is we were trying to get joint teaches, but when we got there, the bishop didn't like missionary work. A lot of the bishops didn't like the missionary work we were doing, so how quickly we were doing it and baptizing people quickly and just kind of like go and member missionary work. They didn't like it so much. And then our ward mission leader was less active as well, and so that was kind of like a tough start. And I remember thinking, this is so weird because I'm supposed to be out in the meadow just frolicking with sheep and knocking on doors all day and like not even talking to the bishop. But then like we go to Scotland, and like a lot of the bishops are fighting against us, like actively fighting against what we're doing. Ward mission leaders are, not active, and we're fighting against what we're doing too. And it's like, I thought that we were all like going to be on the same team and trying to defeat Satan together, and like, like be baptizing people together. But it wasn't quite that way. But then at the same time, we had members that were just amazing and did so much member missionary work, more than I had ever done. So we kind of had both ends of the spectrum. There wasn't many people like in the middle. It was either like they were against us or like really, really with us. And so Alloa, we had some great people that were really, really with us. But we couldn't always get joint teaches and get a member to come with us. So one time there was this little 9-year-old named Jack, and he's like, I want to come out with you guys. And we're like, I don't know if that's allowed, but yeah, we're going to this lady's house. She was from Florida, and we wanted a teacher, and she was having us over for a dinner appointment. And we're like, is your mom okay with it? And their mom's like, yeah, take Jack. So we took this little 9-year-old on a joint teach with us to this lady's house, who made us Southern fried chicken. And
Nice.
And Jack, like, he was like the best joint teach we've ever had, I think. We were sitting there just chatting, and we were sharing a lesson and eating, and talking about the gospel. And he just stops and just like bears his testimony of the gospel. And it was like the most powerful thing I've ever heard. And this lady was just blown away. And she was just like, thank you so much for sharing that, Jack. You have such a great spirit. That's one of the most incredible things I've ever heard anybody say, let alone like a little 9-year-old, And he was just this little powerhouse. We learned after that how against the rules it is to take a 9-year-old with you in your car. So we didn't do that again. But I wish we could have, because Jack was awesome. It was really cool.
Wow.
And then we taught a family named the Jamesons. Matt Fissler had served with Landon Wells just before I got there, and they'd found a lady named Claire, and they were like, Fissler's like, this woman's going to get baptized. You got to baptize her, Landon. And he's like, okay. So I get there, and he's like, we got to baptize this lady. And so we taught her, and at the same time, she was being taught by, I think, Seventh-day Adventists, or, well, it wasn't Seventh-day Adventists. It was some other, it might have been a non-denominational Christian church, but it was really close to her house. She lived up in Tillicootree, which was a ways away from the Alloa ward. So it was really easy for her to go there, and her son was kind of integrated there. But as we taught her, she gained a testimony and was like, I'll she was like, she didn't have a car, but she's like, I'll take the bus down there each Sunday or get rides. So she came to church, and she eventually got baptized, and her son Dean got baptized as well. I think he was 8. And then she had a little daughter, Katie. And they were awesome. They were such a cool family. And we actually, my wife, when my son was a year and a half old, so it was back in 2015, my wife and my son and I went back to Scotland and went all over. We did a trip to London, and then all over Scotland, and then to Paris. And when we went to Scotland, we rented a car, and we went up and started in Inverness, because I never served up in the Highlands. And we went and did like Loch Ness and all that stuff, which was awesome. And then kind of went east across the country to Aberdeen, and then down to Dundee and Alloa, and visited them in Stirling, and then went down to Edinburgh, and then went west and visited Irvine and Ayr. So I'll get into those spots. But anyways, they were a really cool family to go back and visit, and they're living in the same place, and just seeing her kids grow up, and she's just awesome. So
it's awesome.
That was really fun. Something else fun in that area was we went and saw the William Wallace Monument. I don't know if did you guys ever have a chance to see that when you were over there?
Yeah.
Not on my mission, but after the fact, yes.
After. Nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the P days there were incredible. Like, there's if you were in a cool area that had lots of stuff, the P days, you could do so many cool things. So we went to that on a P day, and it was so cool seeing like the sword they think is William Wallace's because of how big it is and how tall he was supposed to be. And then they did all this DNA testing on the sword and saw that there's so many different people's blood was on it, that he must have been his because he killed so many people. It was epic. Well, that was really cool. And then they had like a monument of William Wallace on the outside, but it was
Gibson.
Mel Gibson. Yeah, it looked like Mel Gibson. So they had to cover it with like a cage because people kept like breaking the nose off of Mel Gibson. Everyone was mad that their national hero looked like an Aussie, and so they were all upset about that. And they're like, Mel Gibson's not our hero. Make it look like somebody else. So they would attack it, and so they had to like block it off, which was really fun.
Jeez.
So anyway, so like midway through that transfer, I think with about 2 weeks left of that transfer, there was an emergency transfer, and Alex O'Donoghue came and served in a trio with me and Elder Wells. Alex O'Donoghue was from Milford Haven, Wales, and he was hilarious. He was just a silly Welshman and would just say the funniest stuff and was so awesome, super tall and skinny, and we had a good time, the three of us, when we were there. And then at the end of that, Elder Wells, at the end of those, when the 2 weeks were up, Elder Wells moved on, and then it was just me and Elder O'Donoghue. So we were teaching a family called the Sadowskis, and the husband was a member, but his wife and kids weren't. So we were teaching them and trying to reactivate the husband and get the wife and son to come. Wife and kids, they had a son and a daughter. But we were teaching Donna, and Jonathan was like 9, I think, and then they had a daughter that was a little younger. So we're teaching them, and we go over there for Guy Fawkes night, the 5th. Remember the 5th of November. And I was like, oh, cool, fireworks! Like, it'll be like the 4th of July. This will be great. But it was nothing like the 4th of July. It was insane. They just let anybody buy whatever they want, which was so awesome because it's like the big ones with like the big fireworks where you have to get a holder for it, and they go way, way up in the air. And these people are doing it in their backyards, like with houses right next door and stuff, and they have no idea what they're doing. They're like, I would have loved this as a kid to have this because I love fireworks and was kind of a pyro, but I saw the calamity that came from Guy Fawkes night. And so the Sadowskis have us over, and they're putting this thing up, and it's like windy and stuff, and they're like, oh, it'll be fine. And they light it, and it tips over and like is aiming right at us, and we're diving behind like brick walls as shrapnel is just exploding everywhere. And I'm like, what is going on? He's like, it's fine. Just lights another one, and like Brother Sadowski is just nailing us with like the huge like massive fireworks that could kill somebody. And we're diving all over. I felt like I was in like World War II or something. It was like a war scene. It was like out of control. And the neighbors are doing the same thing. And so stuff's blowing up all over the place. I'm like, this was the craziest night ever, but it was super fun. We're driving home, and we look over to the right, and there's a house just completely engulfed in fire, just burning to the ground, and just sirens everywhere as we're driving home. There's firefighters all over the place. And I'm like, what is happening? And then the fact that they just take little wicker men like Guy Fawkes and light it on fire. And they're like, their thing is like, let's light this man on fire and remember how we burned him because he tried to blow up Parliament. It was like the most sadistic thing I've ever seen. And I love it. Guy Fawkes Night is the best holiday I've ever had. And I've told myself I'll always celebrate it, and I always forget. So this year, I got a month to prepare. I got to make a little wicker basket and tell my little wicker man and tell my kids we're going to celebrate this man getting burned at the stake because we're total sickos. Yeah.
Is it the 5th or the 1st?
I think it's the 5th, isn't it? At least.
I'm going to look it up.
And V for Vendetta, they say, isn't it remember the 5th of November?
Yeah. And the English celebrate because they stopped him before he blew up Parliament.
It is the 5th. You're right.
The Scottish celebrate because he almost blew up Parliament.
That's right. Yeah, they're like excited about it. Yeah, so I like that more. I don't like the wicker basket guy. I don't like burning him, but the fireworks are great. And those masks.
Guy Fawkes Night is a Saturday this year, so you got all the excuses.
Okay. All right, I'm doing it. You guys can come over.
You got it. Fireworks. We'll be there.
We have to go to a non-drought area. Yeah,
Oregon.
Yeah, we'll go up to Oregon and do this. That'll be great. But yeah, what a cool holiday. And then kind of a quick funny story about Donna. So we were at our ward teaching her, and we're having a meeting, and Coford came to the meeting with her, was trying to help us get her baptized, and then he was serving with Elder Lynch. So they're both there. And so we're like, he had this scripture he'd always share with people about how, I think it was it Philip that was traveling with a centurion or something in the New Testament. I think it's in Romans or Acts, and they're talking and they see a body of water, and he's like, here's a body of water. What's going to stop you from getting baptized? Or the guy says, can I get baptized? And he goes, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And he goes, yep. And he goes, let's get baptized. Baptizes them right then. That's basically a great summary of the way we did missionary work in Scotland when I was there. It was like, we did it like New Testament style, just so quick. So he shares that message with her. And he's like, what's stopping you from getting baptized right now? And she's like, okay. So she feels the Spirit. She's like, let's get in. But she was terrified of water. She was like, I couldn't believe how many people were afraid of water in Scotland. She like wouldn't put her head under the water. And so we fill up the font right then, but the water heater was always out. Was your guys' water heater always out in every font you filled up?
Fortunately not.
That is nice. Okay, that is nice. Because the water heater was out, and so we're like boiling water with pots and pans and dumping it in as we're filling it up, but it's ice cold. So I get in the font with her, and the water's not very high either because we wanted her to quickly do it before she got scared of the water. But she was ready. She'd given up smoking, had gone through the non-smoking program with us, had a testimony. It was great. But she's just terrified of water. So we get in. The bishop shows up just furious, right, that we're doing this, but like spur of the moment, kind of understandably. But we're like, come on, like baptizing, let's do this, like come on, New Testament, come on. And so I'm in the water with her, and she's like, do not raise your hand. I'm not ready. I'm too scared. And it's ice cold. We are freezing. And we're just sitting there. And I think we stood there for like 30 or 45 minutes just in the water, just waiting for her to get up the nerve to do it. And she never did. She never did. She was too scared. And Coford's like, just do it. Just dunk her. And I'm like, I can't like force her into the water. Like, that's wrong. It's not a good spiritual baptism. And so, yes, eventually after like 30, 45 minutes, she gets out, and I go home and I just sit in a hot shower for like an hour because I am just frozen. I am so cold. And she was too. It was so sad. So if only the water was hot, maybe it would have happened. Then unfortunately after that, she eventually, like, I think that's why it's so important to get baptized, like when you feel the Spirit and when you're ready, because after that, she eventually went back to smoking, and then eventually was like, don't come over anymore. And she didn't end up getting baptized, or her son, who was really close to getting baptized too. Then a good thing is Jonathan, the son, his cousin, so I guess Donna's nephew, he got really interested in it after that, and he ended up getting baptized, which was, I guess, a good thing that came out of all that. And Guy Fawkes Night was good too. But hopefully the Sadowskis are back in the church now. That would be great. They were a cool family.
Cool.
Cool. And then also, if you go back to Scotland, Alloa has the best chippy ever. It's just in downtown Alloa. There's like one or two chippies there. You can go find one, but the best fish and chips I've ever had. So when we went back and visited, that's one place we went for sure. So definitely check that out.
What's it called? Come on, you gotta know the name.
I don't. I will Google Maps it. I'll find it on Google Maps and tell you, because I know right where the corner is. You go into Alloa, you pass the Missionaries flat downtown, you take a left, and then it's there on your right.
All right. You can send us a
Perfect
screenshot and we'll put it on the website.
Isn't that amazing as missionaries? Like, you know exactly how to get somewhere, to a member's house or a friend's house or a restaurant, whatever, but you have no idea how to tell anybody else.
Oh yeah. You want an address? Are you insane? I'm using a map. We didn't have Google Maps. We had these stupid brick phones that you had limited talk and text, and if you went over, you'd get yelled at by the office elders. So it was
true.
it was different time. These guys are on Facebook and all this stuff, which is awesome.
Oh,
I would have loved to have like Google Maps on a mission.
Oh man.
We had the
Game
books.
changer.
You had the books, and you had to say, okay, this book, it ends right here, and then you flip the page and look at the other side to make sure you're still going in the same street. It was unbelievable. All the while, your companion's shifting for you while he's reading the map. It was crazy. It was a wild time.
Oh my gosh.
So Aloha was great. I ended up serving with, I think before Drew Allen came, at one point we had we had 9 investigators that were progressing, and this was kind of a sad thing. I looked down at our teaching pool and realized that every single person in our teaching pool was getting beaten up by either their boyfriend or their mom's boyfriend. So we were either teaching kids whose mom's boyfriends were beating them, or they were getting beat by their husband. And that made me so mad. It made me so mad to see that. And it was wild. It was so sad to see some of the trials people went through, because I hadn't seen that really growing up or anything, And so it was like having our entire teaching pool, having that happen. It was really sad. So people went through some tough stuff over there for sure. Okay. So then, Elder O'Donohue left. I stayed in Aloha for another transfer and trained Drew Allen. Yeah. He was from Pleasant View, Utah. And it was so fun training. Training, I think, was the best part of the mission. When you trained a missionary, it was just incredible. The energy they bring and just the success you see from just random stuff and just the pure faith, was just so cool to see. And Drew's awesome. I still see him from time to time, and he's so fun to hang out with. He's hilarious. So whenever I train somebody, I always put them in the most awkward situation I could. So we are teaching a mom and a son. So the mom was she's maybe in her 60s, and her son was in his 20s. Maybe she was in her 50s. But Sue Wood and Joe Wood. And so Sue had she was learning, but she had a hard time overcoming smoking, so was having a hard time getting baptized. But Joe was interested, but kind of progressing slowly. And so the first lesson, I of course have Drew Allen teach Joe the law of chastity and get real deep in there. And I figured it was kind of funny to put them in this situation, but also I didn't think it was too mean, because it was beneficial. It's if you can teach this dude about the law of chastity, that's 20-year-old about this, you're not going to have any problem teaching anything the rest of your mission, So first lesson, he teaches him that. Boom, did great job. Then a little bit later, Joe had just been learning for so long, or at least longer than we were used to. He'd been learning, I think, most of the time I was in that area, so for a few months. So finally, I said, Drew, commit him to baptism as well, and just see if he can commit him to baptism. He's learned all the lessons. He knows everything. He believes it. Let's get him to commit to baptism. And Drew went in there as brand new missionary still, just a few weeks out, and was like, are you going to get baptized? Just taught this great spiritual lesson. And he took the bulk of it, taught the bulk of it, and then did the final commitment. And the spirit was so strong. And Joe just goes, no, I'm not getting baptized. And all Aaron's like, all right. And then he goes, just kidding. Yes, I will. And so he got baptized, and it was awesome.
I'm sure Elder Allen died inside when he said no.
Yeah, he did. He even said, he's like, oh my gosh, I was going to run out of this room right now. I was so sad. And Joe's like, no, I'm doing it. They're awesome. We also taught Carlo Pezzani. He was awesome. He was a non-member, and he was married to Wendy Pezzani, who was a member. And then they had a son named Francis, who was really cool. And Francis was a member too. But Carlo had been taught for a while, and was what I guess you'd call an interrogator. So he'd been taught for a long time, but he was just the coolest guy. So nice. He had a problem with, he was trying to overcome smoking as well, and then kind of cement his testimony. So we taught him and went over there a lot, and they're a family we went back and visited as well when we went back to Scotland, and they were just so awesome. Just the people there were just so incredible. And so he didn't get baptized while I was there, but then when I was in Edinburgh, I don't know what it was, 6 months later, or I think it was just before I came home actually, one of the missionaries who was in the MTC with me was in Iowa, and he baptized Carlo, and it was just awesome. And he did it he did it as a surprise for his wife on Valentine's Day. So he's like, come down to the ward. We have this Valentine's activity or something. And she's like, what are you talking about? She goes down there and he's dressed in all white and gets baptized as a present to her, which was so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. That was awesome. So then after that, once again, I was with him just for 6 weeks with Drew Allen, and I moved to Edinburgh. And we opened a new area. Yeah. We didn't whitewash. So we opened a new area called Leith in Edinburgh near downtown. And I served with Chris Lee from Knoxville, Tennessee. And we had a great time. Edinburgh is a cool place, as you guys all know. Much cooler, not as a missionary, by the way. You ever notice, like, you go talk to people on the street? We were out in Edinburgh one night, and we're talking to people on the street, and everyone's like, no. And at one point, we got lost, and we're just looking for directions. And this guy's like, no, get away from me. Get away. I don't care about you missionaries, We're like, no. We're just wondering how to get to this address. And he just completely changed. He's like, oh, you're just looking for an address. Oh, let me help you. I'd love to help you. And comes over and he's like, yeah, walk down the street, turn right. And I was like, oh, man, the Scottish people are so much nicer when you don't talk about Jesus.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, and that's probably most people, actually. But they were super warm and welcoming and nice when you weren't sharing the gospel. And we did a lot of member missionary work, but we'd always talk to people on the streets in between appointments and stuff. And if an appointment didn't show up, that we went and knocked on the door, we'd always knock on the neighbors. So that was mainly the extent of our chapping and talking to people. But yeah, it was a good time. So let me jump ahead a little bit. I have a couple of stories written down, but I have way too many for. What time does this thing end? Is it like an hour and a half? Is that what you guys are shooting for?
We have a limit of midnight.
Oh.
Yeah. If I fall asleep, you just keep going. It's recording.
You keep doing your thing, man.
We're doing a triple edition of this episode. Break it up in 3 parts. Okay, so we taught some great people in Edinburgh, and we noticed that whenever we were trying to do member missionary work, even if it wasn't working out very well, we were always blessed with people to teach. Like I said, like we went to a member's house, they weren't there, and we left, and we saw a woman walking with her 3 kids, and just stopped her and just said, "Hey, would you like can we share a lesson with you?" And she's like, "Yeah, we'd love for you to come by sometime." And we went over and taught her. Her name was Beverly Hartley, and she was also getting abused by her. I think it was her ex-husband or boyfriend. I think it was her ex-husband. They'd broken up, and then he moved back in and was beating her and the kids and stuff. And it was just so sad to see that. But she gained a strong testimony, kicked him out, did really well, and then got baptized, which was really cool. And then there's a member there named Brian Ford, who was awesome. He was a recent convert. I think he'd been baptized just a little bit before I got there. And he was blind, and he was the coolest guy. He would come out and teach with us, and he'd bring his big, huge Braille books, and he'd carrying them around in a roller. And we didn't have a car, I don't think, in that area. So we'd go get him at his house, take a bus to his house, get on a bus and go to our appointments. And he always wanted his scriptures with him so he could follow along and read with us, which was so cool. And he was just incredible. He came out with us all day long, all the time, and would come out. And even if we didn't have appointments, he just wanted to come with us and share the gospel in such a strong spirit, and just absolutely incredible member and so much faith. And he lived alone and figured out he was, I think, in his early 20s, and was really successful at everything he did, even with the limitations he had without being able to see, but just really awesome. Okay. So driving, so I got better at driving. Right. And then when I was in Edinburgh, for some reason, they had me drive the big mission van all the time. I think maybe the office elders didn't have their driver's licenses or something, and we're over the year. Usually they'd go pick up missionaries from, the train station and stuff, like the new missionaries when they got in and stuff. But I just did that for some reason. I was always driving that mission van and driving that thing on these, what should be one-way streets. It was like, I don't know if you guys like Harry Potter, but I felt like I was in the night bus on Harry Potter, where you drive and you're like, I just accepted that both of the side mirrors were going to get knocked off. It's like, all right, we're going to crash and we're going to sideswipe this car, and that's fine, I guess. There's no other way to go. And somehow it was just magic fairy dust was on the car and would just squeeze the car, squeeze the van in and you'd somehow fit, because it never seemed like you could fit, and you always never got in an accident, and never hit anything, which was unbelievable. So I drove that around a lot. And one time we drive to a zone conference in Glasgow. So I take a bunch of missionaries from the district and we go over to Glasgow and have the zone conference. We're driving home. And as we're driving back on the freeway, I see these like 11, 12-year-old girls in this van next to us. And they're like, their mom's like honking the horn. And I look over and they have this sign that says honk, like in all caps, and they're like trying to get people to honk on the freeway, right? So I was like, oh yeah, let's join in the fun. So I just go crazy on my horn and just start honking as it says honk. And the missionaries turn to me. I'm on the right side of the car, right? So I'm looking left. So I can't see the sign too well. And I just kind of glance, just start honking like crazy. Elder Ehat is one of the office elders. He's sitting in shotgun and he looks at me and just looks shocked. He's like, what is wrong with you? And I go, what are you talking about? And I look at the sign again, and in small writing underneath the big honk it says honk if you're horny. And I was like, no. And we all have our mission badges. We're all on our mission stuff. We just came out of this like huge spiritual zone conference. I think a 70 had come to that one, and we're like, we're feeling pumped. And I'm just honking like an idiot. And so, sorry, I don't know if you have to beep out that word. I know this is a family program. If they beep that, I didn't swear anybody. I just said a word. You'll have to guess what it is.
Just say something British, like honk if you're knackered or something.
Randy.
There you go. Randy, that's the one.
Honk if you're Randy. But I don't think it said Randy. Actually, it might have. I might have just translated that to American on my own.
Yeah, you probably did.
Anyways, so one of the sister missionaries in the back was like, what does the sign say? And I'm like, nobody tell her. Don't tell her what it says. And she's like, what did it say? I didn't see it. And Elder Ehat next to me, since he's like, his badge is right here and they're right here, right? And he doesn't want to see the badge. He just like slouches down in his chair, so embarrassed. And he's just like the nicest, sweetest guy. Slouches down and just takes off his badge and just puts it down next to him and just looks at me just disgusted. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I was like, I didn't see it. And nobody believed me. They're like, oh, I'm sure, Elder Baucom. Yeah, you dirty guy. And I was like, they're like 12 years old. I didn't think they'd have a sign like that. I thought it'd be more like, I don't know. And their mom honking the horn, like involved in the shenanigans. Wow.
I don't know. There's 5-year-olds sucking on cigarette butts and drinking wine. I mean, 12's about right.
Yeah, that actually, I probably should have done the math and realized they grew up faster over there. Okay, so then Elder Lee moves. I think he moved up to like Inverness and was like pretty depressed. He's like, I'm going from Edinburgh up to Inverness, and that covered like all the west of like all the Highlands, basically like northwest Scotland. That was a massive area. So he was pretty sad to be leaving, but then he ended up loving it up there and had a great time, I think. So then I trained again. I trained Kellum Whetstone. He was from Layton, Utah. And his like thing, like my little prank on him, it actually turned out to be a prank on me. I didn't mean to like, I wanted to teach people and have like an awkward situation where he teaches something, but this kind of backfired, I think, from what I did to Elder Allen, teaching the law of chastity, because we were on a bus. It was like 8:00, and I think we were going to go stop by some less actives or something, members that I guess we don't say less active anymore. Some members that hadn't been coming to church for a while, but didn't have any appointments. And it was like 7:30 or 8 at night. We're on this bus, and this guy's on the bus, and we start talking to him and asking him if he wants to learn about the gospel. He says, yeah. And he goes, why don't you just come with me to my house right now? This bus will drop me off at my house. You guys can just come over now and teach me. And I'd never had that happen before. I'd never had someone invite me in for a lesson right then, right? Especially on a bus ride. And we're like, great. So we go to his house. We go to his apartment, and he just starts drinking hard liquor. And we're like, huh. And like my companion's been out for like a week or two. And I'm like, all right. And he's like, you guys don't mind, do you? I'm like, well, and he's like, so he keeps drinking. And then he starts smoking a bunch. So it starts smelling really bad, like heavy liquor, cigarette smoke. And as he is drinking, he gets like more and more flamboyant. And then he ends up telling us that he's gay. And we're like, okay, that's fine. Like, we'd love to share the gospel with you still, But then he like starts kind of like hitting on me, right? Like as we're teaching. And I'm like, we should leave, but like he seems interested, and like he kept saying the right things, like I'd love to come to, So we're like we teach him a little lesson, and I was like, will you come to church with us? And he's he's like sitting on the ground, like kind of like in like a model position, kind of like a modeling position, and we're sitting in chairs, and my companion's just like smiling at me so big. He's so happy because he's like, he's like, this is great. I love this is happening to Chad right now. And so I go, will you come to church with us on Sunday? And he goes, will you be there? And I go, yeah, I'll be there. And he's like, then yes. And it sounded just like, I don't know if you guys have seen Elf, the movie, when they're like, you like sugar, right? And he's like, is sugar and syrup? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, then yes. It was just like that. He's like, then yes. And my companion's just trying so hard not to laugh. It was so funny. And then he runs into the other room and gets me. He's like, do you have a tartan tie? And I was like, no, I don't. I have like that Mission one, but I don't really have. He's like, I have a red tartan tie. You'll love it. He goes and grabs this tartan tie, gives it to me. It just reeks of smoke so bad. And I took it. And so we left after things were weird. We said a prayer, and both me and my companion kept our eyes open the whole prayer. And he was just sitting there just staring at me with this huge smile the whole time. So we leave. He ended up not continuing on after that, surprisingly. But I went home and washed the tie a couple of times, and I thought, if this tie makes it through the laundry, I'm keeping it. And it made it through the laundry, and I still have it to this day. I wear it to church all the time. My red tartan tie from Scotland. I think it's a McDonald tartan, and it was amazing. So
I'm sure every time you put it on, you go right back to that sitting room, and you're like, oh my word.
It brings a smile to my face every time, and my wife's face. I told my wife, I said, so what story should I tell from Scotland? And she goes, tell that story. That was like the first story she thought. Like, tell the story of how you got that tie. And I was like, that's on the list. That for sure is on the list.
Oh my gosh.
So we get home one night, me and Elder Whetstone, and we thought it would be cool when we left our apartment. We were on like the third floor, and then like the stairs like spiraled down so you could see all the way down to like the first floor from the third floor. And we thought it'd be fun to drop our keys down and see how loud of a noise it made one morning. So we dropped it down, and the keys there are like so old school, right? They're like the ones that are like this, which is like two little prongs, right? So like
the skeleton keys.
Yeah, the skeleton keys. How do they not get broken into all the time, those houses? Because it's like not hard to mimic that. So we broke the key, and we're like, oh, well, the other one will probably still turn it. Like one of the little skeleton prongs broke. So I was like, it'll probably still turn. So we go out, we teach, we get home like at 9 or 9:30, I think. And because it was like time to get in, and we go to turn the key and it won't open. And we're like, but it's almost 9:30 and we can't break the rules. What are we going to be outside of the apartment at 9:30? What are we going to do? And I was like, I guess we have to kick down the door. And he's like, and I was like kind of half joking. And so I'm like, let me give it a shot. So I run up and like give it like this like kind of weak kick. And I was like, I guess it won't go. And I turn back, and the Whetstone is just running full speed like a bullet train. And I jump out of his way last second. He jumps up, like holds on to the bar on the side, and just kicks with 2 feet. And just the door just smashes, comes crashing down. There's like all this dust that just billows up into the air. And he's like crouched down, and then slowly he's like this. And slowly he just rises out of the dust and just turns around with just this epic look, like I am the coolest person ever. And it was amazing. So he kicked down the door.
He should have come up and said, I'm Batman.
Yes, it was a Batman move.
A 2-foot kick.
It was unbelievable. And just arms on the banister. And I was like, dude, I was like half joking. Like I just gave it I didn't know you were really gonna kick it down. But we got in, and we were in by 9:30 because we were obedient. And so we got inside, and then for like a week, we would there was like a little bottom of the couch, the little like sleeve at the bottom or the fabric at the bottom of the couch. We would pull the couch against the door. We like prop the door back up, like put the couch against it, and then reach under the door and pull the fabric of the couch to pull it really tight against the bottom of the door to keep the door closed. And we did that for like a week or two. We eventually got the key fixed, had to call like the office couple missionary and get the door fixed. Oh man, we were so stupid.
Jeez.
It was awesome.
You dealt with that for a few weeks. I mean, we talked about this on other episodes. The stuff that missionaries put up with just to like not deal with moving, or I don't know how some missionaries did it, because that was not me. Yeah, please call the landlord. No, we'll figure it out for 2 weeks, and we've devised our own lock and key mechanism with the couch. That's too good.
It worked great. We had no landlord phone number. We had this brick phone with like 3 contacts on it. You know, we didn't know how to get a hold of those people. And all we thought was like, we can't take it to a locksmith right now because they're closed. We never even thought, let's call this the couple missionary in the the couple of missionaries that ran the office. We could have just called them.
Oh my god.
Okay, well, I'm glad we have till midnight because we're almost halfway. So, so we that was a fun transfer. I think we went to Edinburgh Castle that transfer on a P day, which was a lot of fun. Such a cool place to go. Talking about kicking down doors, though, we went on a joint teach. We had a lot of there was a lot of Americans that were in the Edinburgh ward, a lot of young single adults that were either there for like an internship or for school, and then some would stay. And so we went out teaching with this woman. I think she was like in her early 20s, and she had moved over there and then had stayed and had been there for a couple of years. So she comes out teaching with us. We go up to I think we were going to teach Beverly Hartley, that recent convert, and we're up in this. It wasn't the nicest neighborhood, and we look down to the next block of flats, and this guy goes running in, pulls out this giant machete, and just kicks the door to the flat building and just runs in with a knife. And she just looks over and she goes, "Can we please leave?" And every time we take like these Americans up to the area, they're all like, "I've never seen this side of Edinburgh." And I was like, "Yes, this is where we teach people. These are the only people that listen," because everybody that was really wealthy, they're like, it's like the poor and humble are the ones that inherit the earth, right? And the meek inherit the earth. They're the ones that would listen. And we'd obviously try to teach the more affluent as well, but they usually wouldn't listen as much. So every time we would go up there, they're like, "Where are you taking me?" And they're like, it's basically like the South Central Los Angeles of Edinburgh that we spent most of our time. I drove my wife and son up in that area for just very quickly, and they're like, my wife's like, "Get out of here." And I was like, "Yep." And so we drove away. But some great people lived up there, and it was awesome. So, okay, I'm going to jump on to, after that, I left Edinburgh and went to Cumbernauld and served with Devin Goodwin. He was from Lehi, Utah. Cumbernauld is just outside of Glasgow. So these are the two closest times I got to Glasgow, was at East Kilbride and Cumbernauld. But Devin Goodwin was awesome, Elder Goodwin. He was so good with people. Like everybody loved him. All the members loved him. All the investigators loved him. The recent converts, like everybody would go and teach. He was just so good at interacting with people. He was such a good person. And it was so funny because I was wearing my mission tie on Sunday at church because, I kind of mix. I still don't have very many ties. On our mission, we were only allowed to wear 8 different ties, and I still kind of only have about 8 different ties that I rotate with. And so it was the week to wear the Scotland Edinburgh mission tie. And so I had that on, the S.E.M tie, and which was great because then I'm coming on your guys' podcast. And then Devin Goodwin just walks up and he's like, "I know this guy." And I was like, "Devin, what are you doing?" And I guess he's going to move into our ward in a little bit. He was coming to check out the ward. So he's got 2 kids. I hadn't seen him in a long time. So I was like, I told him about your guys' podcast. You guys will have to have him on.
Sweet.
But yeah, it was so funny bumping into him. And when I was with him, I did my driving test in Glasgow. I think I was with him, and Elder Fissler was there to try to help me practice for my driving test. And I was like, I'm for sure going to fail this thing. Like we went and practiced before, and I was like hitting curbs when I was backing around the corner and parallel parking and not checking my mirror 70,000 times every minute like they make you do. It's so dangerous how much they make you check your mirror, by the way. You're never looking forward. So I was like, I'm gonna fail this. So I go and do the test, and they're all waiting back for me, just laughing, thinking I'm for sure gonna fail, and just they're so happy because everyone wants you to fail the test because so many people do. So I go on it, and for some reason I did really well. I backed around the corner right. I didn't hit the curb, I didn't do anything. But for some reason I kept speeding. Like I'd see the speed limit was coming up, like increasing by like 10 or whatever. And so I'd start speeding up too early, so that I was going the speed limit by the time I got there. But then I was speeding, and then I wouldn't slow down fast enough either. So I'd start slowing down once I got to a lower speed. And so I sped like the whole test. And at the end of it, the guy's like, "Go back quick." And I go back quick to the place, and he's like, "Park." And I park, and he's like, "Oh, you passed by the skin of your teeth." And I was like, "Yes!" And I jump out of the car and I'm cheering, and nobody believes me. They think I'm faking it. The missionaries are like, "You were lying." Like Fissler and Goodwin are like, "You didn't pass. We know you're lying." I was like, I passed. And so I was like, I did everything right, but I sped like the whole time. And it's probably from following Elder O'Brien in my first area. Like just
there you go.
Fast.
Yeah.
But I passed the test the first time, which was awesome because of how bad the experience was the first time I drove. So I improved.
Colford wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, tell Kofor. Yeah, he wasn't. I don't know if he was there when that happened. He was. He actually saw that. He heard about it.
That's too funny.
So yeah, got to remind them of that.
I have to ask you before I forget. When was the 8-tie rule instituted?
I think it was like right before I got there.
Okay.
The mission got all intense, and the leadership got pretty intense, as you guys have heard. And so when I got
Was
there,
this
they were
part
like,
of Hammer Time?
"Yes, this was.
Okay. All right. That makes more sense.
This was.
I
There's
had
only 8 ties.
I had to
Yeah,
ask
was the 8 ties
because
enforced through Hammer Time?
Yep,
That would have done me in.
and no pink. You couldn't
Wouldn't
have
blow
pink
that
in your tie. If you had pink or purple, oh boy, you were in trouble. So you couldn't have pink or purple, and then the tie had to go right to your belt. They had to end at your belt. You couldn't have these short ties because in Scotland it was like short, fat ties. And it was just disgusting. These short, fat ties. People they go to like here. And it's like, what are you doing? And so, but like a little bit of overcompensation where it's like, hey, if it's like past your belly button, that's cool. But it was like, no, it had to be to your belt. So we check in district meetings, make sure everyone's tie was to their belt.
my gosh, this rule should have been called the Ashley Devine rule, because if you listen to his, Ashley Devine was in my group from January 05 to 07. And at one point, he had more than 150 ties, I think he said, in his possession on his mission. And his pride of his ties was when he wore pink ties.
Ooh.
And he ended up getting an entire area that he served in pink ties.
Yeah, Elders Quorum. The whole Elders
Quorum. So I am almost going to guarantee that is probably why that rule was instituted. And Jack, you remember I remember when I was a younger missionary, some of the older missionaries used to purposely wear like a sweater vest in the winter months, and then their ties were like not more than a couple of inches underneath, so they could have the fattest knot. That's too funny.
Absolutely. My rule was the tie had to cover the last button on the shirt.
Oh, that's more reasonable. Because when it had to go to the belt, a lot of times we go past the belt, and then it just was this huge long tie, and to the belt was pretty long. But so luckily I didn't have very many ties. I have one tie they wouldn't let me wear. I thought they were gonna like throw them out because it was like so intense. I thought they were gonna like throw stuff out when they looked at my bag when I first got to the mission. When they looked through it to make sure I didn't have anything apostate. I did have one tie that was like a little zip up tie with Nephites on it, and I was like, I'm gonna wear this all the time. But even in the MTC, they would make fun of me for wearing that because they're like, you can't wear ties with all this stuff on it according to mission rules. And so they're like, you don't have to you can send that home, but just don't have it out with your clothes. Like, don't wear it. I was like, that's fine. So 8 ties was fine with me. I didn't have any pink ties or purple anyways, so that worked out well. But some people were really upset about that. They wanted that pink and purple tie.
Wow.
Yeah. So
thank you for explaining that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but this was like the Hammer Time thing. It wasn't just like the mission, and I bought into that. By the way, I was like, all right, that talk from President Fredrick and the quote from Harold B. Lee about "Do it your leader's way and you'll be blessed." Like 8 ties, like okay, there's probably a better way. You could probably have more or like more colors or whatever. But it's like, we'll do it my leader's way, whatever. It's not like they're not like leading me astray, right? So I'll do that, and it was fine. But but it wasn't just like that. It was like we had like Neil L. Anderson, Elder Neil L. Anderson came. We had a few people come and talk to us. So he was in the presidency of the 70 at the time. This was just before he became an apostle. And he came and spoke to us, and he just shredded us. Like, he was like Hammer Time times like 10. Like, he just went off on the mission, and I guess it was what we needed to hear. But this wasn't just like a missionary thing or like a missionary leadership thing. It was like everybody was intense in that mission. Anybody came to visit us. Like, it was wild. So he was really funny. He was like, oh, so you guys doubled baptisms last year. Cool. Do you know how many baptisms they had in Brazil? I just came from Brazil, and they baptized thousands of people. Your baptism, I think that was a weekly goal of theirs. Like, he just ripped us, and we were like, oh my gosh. He just went off. But it was crazy because when people would rip us, it was weird. They do it with the Spirit. So you're like feeling the Spirit and feeling good as you're just getting destroyed, which was interesting. But he was a powerful guy. He taught us how to bear our testimonies, and I was sitting on the front row for this, and for the zone conference that he came to, and he's like, "This is how you bear your testimony." And then he stared me in my eye, in my eyes, and he's like, and gave an example of bearing testimony and how we should do it on the street when we talk to people. and bore like this amazing testimony. And I just remember sitting there just staring at him and be like, oh my gosh, this dude's powerful. So even though he like ripped us, he was like still like loving at times. And like, I guess we needed to hear that.
Wow.
But yeah, so that happened. And then when I was in Cumbernauld, Elder Holland came, which was awesome. Jeffrey R. Holland of the 12 came, and we all went to the Edinburgh ward and had him talk to us. And it was amazing. So we were having people walk. We were waiting there to shake his hand. And we were all waiting like in the cultural hall to shake his hand in like the gym. And people were coming in and out of the building, and you couldn't hear anything. There was like no sound of like the door slamming or anything like that. But all of a sudden, we're sitting there and the building shook. It was the weirdest thing. It was like a physical shake. And everyone's like, what the heck was that? And then we look over and Elder Holland had just entered the building. And it was wild. It was like everybody knew like something weird just happened. And like you could feel like his power and his authority walking into the building as one of the 12 apostles of Christ. Like it was audible. And everyone's like, what was that? And it was like, I really believe it was like his aura entering the building, or possibly his wife's, because they both spoke. And his wife, as powerful as Elder Holland is and how much I love him, his wife is like even more so. Like you can tell, like he married up for sure. She gave an incredible talk too. But he came in, he shook all of our hands. We had all practiced shaking hands for like an hour before he got there because we wanted like eye contact and good shake. So he shakes our hands. We go on and we sit down, and he goes, President Fredrick, I just interviewed all of your missionaries as I shook their hand. And for the most part, you have a pretty good mission, but there's a handful of people you need to pull aside and talk to and help them straighten out and get back on the right track. And it was like, okay, he just interviewed us. And we knew that, we'd heard that, but we didn't think he was going to say it. And like, actually we didn't know how real it was, but yeah, you can see through his apostolic calling, he has that ability, I guess. So that was crazy. And then he did the same thing. Like he was so intense when he spoke, but then also so loving. Like we were laughing a bunch. We were like terrified, but he spoke with such power and authority. And at one point, he goes, if you go home from your missions, and don't take this personally, Jack, because, you know, I think he was joking, and I have a little scruff myself, but he goes, if you go home and you grow a beard, you elders, or you get earrings, or you get these weird bracelets everyone's wearing, I will leap on you and land on your face and wrestle you into a ditch in front of your mother. That's a direct quote. I had memorized that puppy.
Oh, my
I
word.
believe it.
And so I did shave like a week ago. I had a little bit bigger of a beard, but I was like, I got to be a little bit more clean shave. If he sees me, even if he sees this, he's gonna wrestle me. And it was no joke. I told my friends this when I got back from my mission, and we went to a farewell soon after I got home, and Elder Holland talked at it. One of our friends, like dads, knew Elder Holland, so he was at her farewell. So he spoke at it, and then I was like, let's go say hi to him. Let's all go talk to him after, you know, like. He's amazing, you know. And one of my buddies was wearing a blue shirt and had a little bit of scruff, and he's like, I can't go talk to him. You told me he's gonna kill me. Like he knows I'm wearing a blue shirt. He was like terrified from the story I told him. But we went up and talked to him, and my friend was so insecure, and he said hi to all of us, and then he turned to my buddy with the blue shirt and the scruff and goes, I love you, Jake. And Jake's like, just felt so happy, and he's like, oh my gosh, he said he loves me. He knew I was insecure and that I needed to hear that and that I'm still a good person. Oh,
jeez.
But then it was scary too, because then after I got home, a year after I got married, and then we moved into Elder Holland's ward. We moved into a ward in the lower avenues. And the first day we're there, we look in and he's in an elder or in high priest group. And my wife's like, Elder Holland's right there. And she's like, because I like loved when he came and spoke to us, I told everybody about it. And she's like, we were super excited. So we got to be in his ward for 4 years and see him there. It was,
holy cow.
It was incredible. Yeah, it was awesome. And then another person that came to speak to us that I wanted to mention was, I think he was in Area 70 in Sweden. His name was Elder Per Malm. And then later on, he became a member of the First Quorum of the 70 and spoke in a couple of conferences, but he was amazing. And an experience I had with him, we were in a council meeting with him, and he was talking, and I had this thought. And so I wrote down this question, and it was like about my family at home or something, and how I could help them or something. So I write it down, my question. I was like, how could I do this, or how could I do better? And I look up, and he's just staring right at me. And he like paused and was just staring at me and answered my question that I'd written down exactly for me. It was incredible. He's like, this is how you help your family. It was like so blatant. It wasn't like one of those like, oh, like I'm taking some insight from what he's saying. He was like, I wrote down the question. He was way far away. No way he saw it. I look up and he goes, this is how you help your family. And then gave me an answer right there.
Oh.
And it was just unbelievable. Like the experience I had on my mission, I know some people come home and life gets hard and people fall away from the church, you know, and hopefully they find their way back. But like from those experiences that I had, it's hard to know, like I couldn't go through those and then be like, oh yeah, it's not true. You know, like it's not true. Like the Spirit and those stories and just the feelings you have as you go through that stuff, it's like there's no way it's not true. Like and hopefully I can stay faithful always and stay strong in the church. But it's like I think I had a bishop that had the word remember. It was like he had like a framed big word that said remember, and he said it's besides atonement, it may be the most important word in the English dictionary, because when our whole lives, we can't remember the pre-earth life, right? We don't remember that we agreed to come down here. We don't remember that we agreed to follow Christ and God and try to make it back, right? And then throughout our lives, we have these amazing experiences, especially, you know, if you're able to be born in the church and grow up in the church, serve a mission. Like we've all had these amazing, incredible spiritual experiences, but then sometimes we still fall away from the church. And it's because we don't remember those feelings. Like if we remembered how we felt on a mission during those good times and these spiritual experiences, there's no way we would fall away. But the problem is we all forget, right? We all forget over time. And so I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing here, because, you know, you're helping us to remember these great experiences and keeping our faith strong and getting the faith back if we've lost it. So
yeah,
it's really awesome.
Thank you.
So that sounded like an ending, but I am 1 year into my mission right now. So I'll let you guys decide if you want me to keep going or if you've had enough.
No, you do your thing. Yeah, I mean, you haven't broken the record yet, so you're good.
I haven't. Okay, good.
No.
What's the record? I want to stay under it.
I think we're not going to tell you. No, we're not.
You know, I'm going to try to break it. Okay. So moving right along. Another cool thing is after we moved into that ward with Elder Holland, it was in the lower avenues, like just like a few blocks north or east of the Salt Lake Temple, up on that hill on 2nd Ave. And so some 70s were in that ward too. And when Elder Pear-Malm got called to the 70, he moved into our ward. So I was able to talk to him about like how amazing he was and how incredible an experience I had is when he came and taught us there. It was really cool. And he loved my wife. He was so nice to her and always complimentary of her. He was a really nice guy. And I think he passed away from maybe cancer a few years ago. But it was just too bad, but he was awesome. Okay. So then I leave Cumbernauld and I go to Irvine on the west coast of Scotland, and I serve with Roy Peckham. He's from Long Beach, California. And he was awesome. We had a great time together. I could say that about all of my companions, I guess. But the thing I remember most about that area was the youths. The youth in that ward were awesome. They were so funny. So the Wild brothers, there was Jack Wild, Ben Wild, and then I think their half brother or stepbrother, Luke Garraway. And those guys were hilarious. Emmanuel Corbett. And then there's a bunch of other kids too, but they were so funny, and they would always pull pranks on us and but it was always like fun-natured, like good-natured pranks. And Peckham would get furious. He like didn't understand the jokes. Like he would get so mad and be like, why would they do this to us? Like, don't they know that we're missionaries? And like, we'd get all upset. And I was like, they are so funny. I mean, as you saw, my friends sometimes went too far by throwing rocks at windows, but we would do like pranks and stuff, like, you know, good-natured pranks. And I thought they were hilarious. And they definitely outdid anything I did when I was a kid. But we had a good time with them. And then the bishop was like so on board with missionary work, Billy Govins, and he was awesome. And then President Yates was the stake president, and he was in our ward, and he was awesome too. His family was incredible. He had a son named Rob Yates, which was one of the fun youths, but he wasn't as much of a trickster as the other ones. He was really nice. But he would come out, all those guys would come out on joint teaches with us, and we loved those kids. They were all like 16, 17 when we were there and playing soccer with them and stuff. We had a great time. So one time we taught these people up in Greenock, which is way north, but it was part of our zone. So we went up and taught them. They'd walked into this Greenock ward. We went up and taught them. And one time when we drove up there, we saw this place called Largs, and Peckham had somehow heard that there's just these big hills of Largs, which I pictured my mission being. It was like old cobblestone walls, sheep, and just like these beautiful green hills. So Peckham's like, let's go there on a P day and go on a hike. So we went up there and hiked, and we found this. It was like this beautiful stream that went up the side of the hill, and then way up on the hilltop there was like a plane crash, and there's these old parts of a plane that were like broken down, and really old plane crash. And it was just a cool, really pretty area, and then kind of a random thing to see up there with the plane. And so we're like, let's go out with like some members of the zone, and we'll take some of the youth with us, and we'll go up there on a P day. So we go up there on a P day a couple weeks later, and with these other people to show them around, and thought they'd think it was fun. We go up there, and it is so foggy. You can't see like anything. You can see like 10 feet in front of your face. And we're like, all right, but we went up and it wasn't that bad at first, and then it got worse and worse. And we get up and we see the plane, and then we come walking back down, and we're completely lost. We like can't find the river. We know like at the end of the river, we can go back, take a left at the end of the river, and we make it back to where the cars are parked. But if we make a wrong turn, the hills go on forever. We'd like looked on like a map or something, and the hills just went on forever and ever and ever for miles and miles.
Jeez.
And so we're walking back, and everyone starts panicking and freaking out. And we're like, we have the stake president's son with us, and we've lost the stake president's son. And we need to get him home by 6 for his dinner. And P-Day ends at 5. So we got to get home by then. And like, we're being apostate if we don't. And like, we're going to have to sleep out here. And then if we walk the wrong way, because we got completely discombobulated. We had no idea which direction was which as we were walking around. And we're like, if we walk the wrong way, we're walking for like, I don't know, like 50 miles or something. And so we all sit down and we're like, what can we do? And then I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're all going to spread out. And all you're going to see is the person to your left and right. But we can't get too much farther than that, because if they go too far, then we're all lost. We're never going to see each other again. But we're going to spread out because we have to find this river. And once we can make it to the end of that river, we'll know how to get back to the car. But we didn't know if we'd already walked past the river and had gone past it, where we were going into an abyss forever. And so we all spread out, and we could only see the person on our left and right. And we were yelling the whole time so everyone could hear, and we were all communicating if we could see. We walk and walk and walk for like 10 minutes or so. And then the person on the far right says, I found the river. And we all run over to the river, find the river, make it back to the car, and get out of there alive.
Oh my gosh.
It was so scary. Oh my gosh. So when we're out there, there was one night where there was a seminary graduation. And so all the members were at the seminary graduation, and it was almost like apostate to knock on doors, borderline, or, just going and doing that. It was like, no, go to the members, exhaust all your effort with members or less actives or anything to do the work that way. But our leaders called us randomly, and they said, why aren't you, what are you guys doing tonight? And we said, we're trying to find members to go to, but no one's available. And they say, go invite 5 people to be baptized right now. And we said, okay. And once again, like, that didn't really make sense. We didn't really knock on doors that much. And like, just going inviting 5 random people to get baptized, what's that going to do? Once again, Harold Bailey's quote, do it your leader's way, you'll be blessed. So like, whatever. So we go and knock on the first door, and this woman answers the door, and like her 16-year-old daughter comes to the door. And we're like trying to teach them this brief lesson, and like be like, hey, can we come teach you guys sometime? And they're like, yeah. And then they'll Peckham, like, as we're walking away, is like, do you guys want to get baptized? And they're like, I don't know. Why don't you come over for the visit first, and then we'll talk about that, And he's like, okay. And so we go, and then we go and ask a few more people, and then I think the last one, the 5th person, was a single guy, and we go and ask him if he wants to get baptized too. We end up going back and teaching the mom and the daughter. Her name was Janet Lamond, and her daughter was Sarah Lamond. I think she's about 16. And then the last guy we talked to was named Jamie Colin. We teach him too. And I don't know if we'd had any baptisms in the area at that point. And all 3 of those people ended up getting baptized. And it was like, we never knocked on doors. We stopped at this neighborhood and just knocked. And teaching them was incredible, especially like Jamie progressed great and overcame a lot and got baptized. And then Janet and Sarah was like such a blessing to teach them. Like the Janet didn't get baptized for like a year. She got baptized later, but Sarah got baptized while Peckham and I were together. And every time we go teach them, we'd stop in front of their house and just like talk about how important what we were about to do was. We're teaching this mom and this daughter. They're like incredible people, super nice. And like every time we went into a lesson, we'd be like, we need to like have the Spirit with us. Like salvation, exaltation is in the balance, right? We were so intense. We're like, we need to be on top of our game. And I learned how to so much about how to teach with the Spirit from Elder Peckham. He was a great teacher. And I think just like getting yourself in the right mindset before we went into every lesson and like really understanding how important what we were doing was so helpful, because we were like, these people could go either way. They could tell us to stop coming over any moment. It took us like 2 months to get Sarah to even say a prayer. Like for some reason, she didn't want to pray. We were trying so hard to overcome that concern and figure out what the root cause was and why she didn't want to pray. Eventually she did and got baptized soon after she prayed, because she got an answer. And wow. They were 2 people that we went and visited when we went back and visited and went out to dinner with them. So they were just so incredible. And the Yates family too. The Yates family was hilarious. So we had to go visit them and all the youths. They're all grown up and post mission by that time, but it was a good time. And kind of while I was out, everybody was waiting. Everyone wants you to get Dear John, right? If you have a girlfriend, they want you to get Dear John, and they tell you you're going to get Dear John. Especially Christian Lucas. Christian had like a bad Dear John experience, I think, and was really bitter about it.
That's right.
So he's always like, you're going to get Dear John and you're going to deserve it. And everyone does. And there's no way you're getting through this. So my Dear John story was weird though, because I got like an email and a letter from my girlfriend saying like, are you okay? Like, you haven't said anything about what happened. Like, is everything all right? Out of the blue. And I was like, what is she talking about? And then she was like kind of getting mad at me, like, why aren't you responding? Like, you've had this for months now, or like a month or something. And apparently when I was in Cumbernauld in my previous area, she had sent me my Dear John letter. It had gotten lost or something. And so I got the post Dear John, like, are you okay? Before I got the actual Dear John, which was so funny. I thought it was hilarious. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she thought I was lying. She thought I'd gotten Dear John and was just like ignoring it. But then like I think a month after it should have gotten to me, and like after the other letters and emails, I get this letter in the mail, and it's in this plastic bag with a tire track over it. And it had gotten like run over, must have fallen off a track. It was like all crumbled up. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I pull it out and read it. And sure enough, it's my Dear John letter from like a month before. And I was like, I told her, I was like, I finally got it. And I was like, it's fine. She's like, I still want to write you and stuff, but I want to date around. And I was like, that's great, do your thing. But it was so funny because she like put her heart into this, and I like hadn't even seen it. And so Christian was still there and was so happy when I told him I'd gotten Dear John, and a lot of the other missionaries were too, because they were bitter. But my companions always liked it because they'd get the food and stuff, because my girlfriend sent me a bunch of packages. Yeah. So anyway, so then I served with I was with Peckham for 3 months. So that was, I think, my first 3-month companion right at a year, basically. And then I go to Dundee and serve with Justin Van Leuven, which he is so funny. You guys got to have him on. He's from Redding, California. And he was awesome. He had a good time. We taught a recent convert family there, which was like this epic family, because it was the only family I'd heard of, which was a husband and wife and children who all got baptized together. There's a husband and wife and 2 children. They had all gotten baptized. And when these missionaries baptized them, I think it was like 8 months or something before, or 6 months, the whole mission heard about it. They're like, a family, we're always searching for families to baptize. And it was like a family got baptized. So we went and met with them a lot, and we'd always go over to their house and try to help them with staying active and everything. And they were great and did stay active, and they were incredible. And then there was a family called the Thompsons there, which was a husband and wife, and the wife had kind of fallen away. We helped her come back, and he just had like 3 or 4 dogs that he'd always be walking. And so we'd always go on walks with him and talk to him, and he'd come out on lessons with us. And his wife came to church when we were there, and it was awesome. There was another guy there named, I can't remember his last name. His name was John. But he had this really cool experience where he was trying to get a restoration of blessings. He hadn't been, I guess it's not fully excommunicated, but like disfellowshipped or something. And he worked so hard, and he was getting pretty old. And I remember the day where he came in and his eyes were just twinkling, and he said he'd gotten approved for his restoration of blessings, and they'd done it, I think, over the phone or something. Like a 70 had called him and interviewed him and got it. And he was just so happy. And when we went back to visit him, we went to go see him, and I somehow remembered where he lived, just based off memory. I got really lost in Scotland a lot of times when we were driving around because didn't know any addresses and was just confident I'd find stuff. But we went to visit him and he had passed away. His wife told us, but like he was so happy that he was able to get his restoration of blessing before passing on. It was really cool.
Amazing.
So then Van Leuven left after his 6-week stint with me. I stayed in Dundee, and Matt Fissler from San Diego, California, came and joined. And we had a kind of crazy experience. We were driving from, what was the area? An area down south of us. We were driving back home to Dundee, and we were in Vauxhall, Corsica. Yes, the big one, the 4-door one, not the 2-door one. And we were driving home, and I'm passing a car it was kind of like a little highway. It was like a 2-lane, but it was like we went pretty fast. It was like 60 or something. So I'm passing, this car's going, and I'm passing it, and it was dark, and I didn't realize there was a hill. And so all of a sudden we see headlights coming up like pretty close on the other side of the hill. And so I'm gunning it, and I get like halfway to the car, and I'm like, we're going to get in a head-on collision. And Fissler the whole time is just like looking at me, like looking at me. He's like smiling, thinking I'm going to slow down and get back. But at one point I don't think I had enough time to get behind the car next to me. And then I was like, should I downshift and like jump it? But if you downshift one of those cars going that fast, they didn't take it very well, and it could like rumble and slow the car down, right? So I was like, I can't downshift, but we're going really slow in front of this car. And it was crazy because the car to the side of me didn't slow down, even though they saw I was trying to pass them. If anything, they were trying to speed up. And then the car coming head on could see us in their lane, and they sped up too. Like they weren't, or at least they weren't slowing down. And so we're going. I barely get, I'm like, I think I might be good. And this car is like, honestly, like they had to have been like a couple feet in front of, well, probably a few yards just in front of us. And last thing, I just go over, and I'm like, I'm going to hit the car to the side of me, and we're both going to go off the side of the road, but at least we don't get in a head-on collision. And I just zoom, and the car just goes flying past us. We barely don't nick the car that we're passing. And Fissler is just sitting there with his feet up on the dash, just like, like just screaming his head off as we're like getting in front. Barely make it. And he didn't talk to me the whole rest of the drive back. He had his feet up on the dash, leaning back with his hands on his head, and his eyes just huge because I think his life flashed before his eyes. And he didn't say a word to me the whole, like, it was like an hour drive or something, and did not talk to me the whole rest of the way.
I've had a moment like that in my life, and I can understand why he felt that way. Gosh.
It was scary. So another miracle of not dying in a car. So that was good. We taught a guy named David Finley there, and he was one of those people who we went to an address. Somebody gave us a fake address. We went and knocked, and David Finley answered the door. And he was just like an awesome guy. We're like, this dude's going to be like a bishop. Like he like so put together, so smart. He had like a PhD, I think, in religion. Super awesome. So we taught him for a while, and he was like kind of back and forth. And then we had President Fredrick was in Dundee one day, and we said, can you come to this lesson with us? So we go to this lesson. President Fredrick comes to his flat. We teach him this lesson, and it was just like, President Fredrick is just incredible. I taught with him twice, and both times he just like knew exactly what to say. He just walks in, hardly knows this person, just follows the Spirit, says exactly what they need to hear at the exact right time. And he converts this dude just by talking to him. He finally gets over the hump. All his concerns are gone. He's like, oh, I feel the Spirit really strong. And then President Fredrick goes, let's kneel down and say a prayer right now. And you ask if the church is true and if you should join, and you'll get your answer right now. And so we kneel down. David Finley says the prayer. He opens his eyes. The Spirit is just so strong. And then President Fredrick just yells out, and he's like, I have a Charlie horse. I think it's this Charlie horse. And he's like yelling, and we're like, President, you just like blew us all away. And then you scream. But we get up, and David's like, I got my answer. The church is true. I'm going to get baptized. And we're like, yes. So he goes, I'm going to go home. I'm going to tell my family. And he lived in Glasgow. His family was from Glasgow. So he's like, I'm going to go back to where my family lives, go to Glasgow. I'm going to tell my interfaith group. So him and a buddy had created an interfaith group that had Muslims, Jews, and Christians, and I think some other religions too, where they'd all meet monthly or weekly or something in Glasgow. So he went to Glasgow all the time for his interfaith group he was running. He's like, I got to go tell them and tell them how exciting it is. And the whole time we taught him, he was super surprised. He goes, I've never seen a Christian church be attacked more than your guys is by other Christians. He's like, I see stuff online. I see Catholics attacking you guys. I see Protestants. See all this stuff online. Why do they attack you? And I was like, so he'd come to church. He'd been progressing for a while. realized that everything he'd learned online was a lie, and then goes back to do it. So he goes back, he tells his interfaith group, that's the name of the group, tells them that he's going to be baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a group he started. And they told him, you will be kicked out of this group if you join that church.
Jeez Louise.
What is that? Well, my mind was blown. And I know like stuff like that happens sometimes, but I was like, what? Like you have like Sunni Muslims and Shia Muslims and, a bunch of different sects of Judaism and Christianity, and you can't join our church, right?
Yeah. Goodness.
So I couldn't believe it. And then slowly he had that witness, and slowly he like fell away and was like, I just can't do it. I've started this group. This like has been my life. And he like knew what he was doing was wrong and like felt bad about it. And we tried everything we could to convince him to follow his answer. And he didn't end up joining. And it was so sad to see that.
I had a couple of instances like that in my mission too. And I think that those people will be honored at some point, for the thought that they had felt the Spirit. The intention was I would if I could, based upon circumstances. But man, those are like heart-wrenching experiences on your mission when you see somebody get that close and then something happens that just derails it all.
Yeah. It was a huge bummer.
Yeah, for sure.
But I still talk to him from time to time and like message him on Facebook or whatever. And he moved to like China for a long time and did some stuff there. But yeah, he was like it's like this dude's going to be bishop like his second year in the church. Like he was so solid and such a good leader in person. Yeah.
Well,
maybe one day
that could be a benefit in disguise, having gone to live in China.
Yeah.
Going there as a Christian might have been a conflict, and maybe that's the reason. Who knows? He might find it again in the future.
That's true. You never know. But we had a great experience with him and such a good guy.
Cool.
Okay, 3 more companions I have here. Okay, so Joseph Patel. He's from Gloucester, England. He was awesome. He was such a great missionary. He taught with the Spirit so well. He's incredible. But a couple of quick stories about him. So he was a loud snorer. He snored all the time. And I've never told him this, but there were several nights where he was snoring so loud I just couldn't sleep. I didn't know what to do. So what I would do is I'd grab a pillow and just hit him in the face and then quickly put my pillow down and pretend like I was asleep. And he'd wake up and look around confused and then go back to sleep. And then it was a race. And I was racing to fall asleep before he fell asleep again because there was no chance I was falling asleep when he was snoring. I'm sorry, Elder Patel, but it was me that woke you up all those nights, and I'm sorry. This is my confession. But he was awesome. But we did also, with him, we got in a car crash. Those I wasn't driving, unbelievably. Those we were right by a park there in Dundee and the Bingham Ward. There's this big park right there, and there was cobblestone roads, and we were there in the winter when I was with him. And so he was driving, and it was super icy, and it was so sad because we were going down to another area. Like, is Perth near Dundee? I think maybe just Perth Ward,
just
Perth
directly
branch.
West.
Yeah, so we're going out to a branch. The missionaries there were in the branch presidency. I think Leo Humphreys was in the branch presidency. My second companion was there at the time.
Oh, wow.
And we were going to bomb Perth. And the branch president was like all into missionary work, which was awesome because it wasn't that frequent that happened. And so he's like, let's get all the missionaries from the zone. Let's come down here. So we're going down. We're going to pick up a bunch of missionaries. We're going to bring all these Book of Mormons. We're going to go down. We're driving down that cobblestone road right by our flat. And he turns left and just slides and slams into the curb. And we broke the axle of the car.
Oh, geez.
And as we're sitting there, a car does the exact same thing, hits us as we're in the car and rear-ends us. And then they leave. And then we went home because we had to go call the mechanic, come fix the car and call the mission office. So we're home and it's freezing. It was so cold. So walking home was really cold. Get back. And then we go to meet the mechanic down there and we go back down there and the car had been hit once or twice more. And our car was just in like a dead zone, but we couldn't move it. Like the axle was broken. So we were so sad, but the branch president was just devastated because we're like, we can't get the missionaries. No one else has a car. I'm so sorry we can't make
Oh,
it.
jeez.
It was a bummer, but it was, yeah.
What an experience. Here's the thought, though. Maybe you weren't supposed to go that night.
Yeah.
You
Maybe
know?
we would have died on the freeway on the way there because of how icy it was.
Yeah. I mean, when the roads are icy in Scotland, they are icy,
Yeah.
and they have no means of making it any less icy until sunshine might hit something.
Yeah.
So yeah, who knows? That was maybe something that Heavenly Father said, you know what? Let's not go over the top on this. That's my thought anyway.
That is a great thought, and I had not thought of that. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I feel a lot better now of letting down that branch precedent.
Oh, I'm
But
sure
no,
he survived, and
he did.
a little disappointment is better than people losing lives.
That's true, and I'm guessing they did that the next transfer and went and
Sure.
bombed Perth. So then I moved down to Edinburgh after that, and I served with Jake Mulford and Matt Fissler. So Jake Mulford is from Fruit Heights, Utah. Matt Fissler, I'd served with him like 2 transfers before in Dundee. So we were in a trio together. He was going home in like 2 or 3 weeks or something. So we were in a trio just for a little bit. But we had such a good time together. We only had 2 beds. So one person slept just in the middle of the 2 beds on the ground. And we would take turns sleeping on the ground. We called ourselves the 3 Amigos. And it was great to be back in Edinburgh. There was a member there that I hadn't met the first time. I was in the same ward as the first time I was there. So I was there the first time for 3 months, the second time for 3 months. So a quarter of my mission was in Edinburgh. There's a member there I hadn't met named Derek Kilpatrick. He went by Deke Kilpatrick, and he had a buddy in the ward as well. And we'd go over to their house. There was 2 single guys, and we'd have boys' night in. So we'd always go over there for like dinner and share a lesson with them, and it was the best. We'd have boys' night in, and they'd order a chippy or order pizza or order Chinese food, and like every night they were just like every weekend they would have us over for boys' night in, and we had a great time with them. And they did a great job sharing the gospel with their friends and inviting people over, and we taught people at their house, and they were awesome. So I tried to visit Deke when I went back to visit because I really wanted my wife to meet him, but he was in, I think, Las Vegas when I was there, or somewhere in the States. I think he met a girl from Vegas and was like visiting her or something, a woman. But they were like 2 older guys, like maybe like 50s or something, and they treated us so well.
That's awesome.
And then we also went to the Mateers quite a bit. They had a son that was getting ready for a mission named Aaron Mateer, and they were really cool. They had so Sister Mateer, her nephew was named Brock Sign, and I went to high school with him.
Huh.
So her sister had moved to the U.S. to Utah, and we went to East together. And so that was a fun connection, and seeing them over there, and was fun to meet. And so I was like messaging Brock about it, like emailing him about how I met his family and stuff. So that was really cool. They were telling him about it. And they were a great family. They had us over a lot and treated us really well, and they gave us a lot of good ideas for finding people and stuff. So
that's amazing.
Got to give them a shout out. Okay, we're on the last one. So so Fissler went home, and then I was with Mulford for another transfer. So I think Mulford I was with for 3 months, and Peckham, I think those were the only 2. And then Elder O'Donohue, I was with him for like 8 weeks, and same with Fissler because of the trios we were in. So then, Jake Clark, I was with her 3 months too. So I guess 3. So that was great. So I go with Jake Clark to Ayr on the west coast of Scotland in the Paisley Stake. Not too far from Irvine. I think it's the next ward south of Irvine. And the west coast of Scotland is just the best. Those wards there were incredible. It was like everything I'd hoped a mission to be was being in those wards, where like everybody was just cool and liked us and like helped us. It was great. So Jake was a new missionary, so I trained him. So he's the 3rd missionary I trained, and we get to the place. So you go to the mission home, you pick up the missionary, and then Ayr was really far, right, compared to other areas all the way on the west side of the country, which it's not that big, but took us a while to get there. So it was like 8:30 at night. So we get there, and our leaders picked us up, take us to the apartment. They say, okay, put down your stuff and go invite 5 people to get baptized. And these are different people than the previous ones with Peckham. And I was like, okay. I was like, it's like 8:30. Like, we got to unpack still. Like, I figured we'd unpack and just go to bed. But I go invite 5 people. And I was like, all right. So we go out there, and I was like, hey, Jake, Elder Clark, you got to invite the first person, right? I always try to make the trainee missionary do something. I was like, you go invite. So the first person he goes invites to be baptized is Andrew Kincaid. And we just meet him on the street in downtown Air. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll come to your church tomorrow. You can teach me at your church, and we'll see about baptism stuff. But yeah, I'd be interested to learn about your church. And we're like, yeah, okay. We get told that all the time. And I was like, if they say meet me at your church and don't give us their address, there's no way they're coming, right? So we're like, okay. So we go invite 4 other people to get baptized, go home, go to sleep. The next day, Andrew Kincaid shows up at church, and we teach him at church. He progresses really well, has these amazing experiences. And then Bishop Gilardi, he was the bishop of the ward, and when I was in Irvin, he didn't like missionaries. So we had Air is kind of struggling. The bishop doesn't like missionaries, and he's kind of against them. And he's like this big Italian, Scottish, ex-Catholic guy, super loud, super funny, but you don't want to mess with him, right? You don't want to be on his bad side. And so the only interaction I had with him before was he had a place called Stobbs the Baker. He owned Stobbs. So shout out to Stobbs. You go to Scotland, go to Stobbs. Great bakery. Breakfast sandwiches are incredible. All the good Scottish breakfast stuff and bakery stuff is there. So we went there because he gave missionaries free baked goods. But I was scared when we were in Irvin to go there and get it, because I was like, I hear this guy doesn't like missionaries and he doesn't know us. He might not like us. So he comes over to our apartment. We go and teach Andrew Kincaid, and we keep teaching him. That day, Bishop Gilardi is like, can I come to your apartment? And he comes over and was like, yeah, you're in this ward now, and I've had problems with leaders in the past and stuff, and tries to be nice about it, but seemed like he didn't the missionary leadership in the mission or anything. And so he just kind of wanted to see what I was going to do there. And I was like, no, yeah, we'd love to work with you. And we had kind of an awkward interaction in our apartment. I was like, I don't think he's supposed to come to our apartment. But I didn't know how to say no because he was too intimidating. So he was kind of reading me, right? And so we're like, all right, we'll see how this goes. But then as we meet with him more, he's like, I want to trust you. I want to trust the missionaries. He goes, I was really against missionary work for a long time. And then President Fredrick came and spoke to all the bishops in the Paisley stake, including the stake president. And President Yates was really on board with missionary work, but not all and so was Billy Govins from Irvin, but a lot of the other Paisley stake bishops were not. And Umberto Gilardi was one of those. So he came in and he just was like, why would you fight against missionaries? President Frederick was like, do you guys want to be fighting against missionaries that are here to help your wards grow and help people come into the faith? These missionaries are just trying their best, and they can be kind of intense and over the top sometimes, but they're here to help you. They're called of God to help you guys. And you guys aren't helping them. Are you guys going to keep fighting against the mission, or are you going to join it and help us progress? And we want to work with you guys, and this is your country. What can we do to help you? And was kept more interactive that way. And the Spirit just touched Gilardi's heart. He's like, I realized what I was doing was wrong. And he just pulled a complete 180 and just helped missionaries like crazy. So all the joint teachings we were going on were with the bishop and with the Relief Society president, which I'd never seen. I'd never seen anything like that in all my areas. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the reason why my mission was 2 months later than I had hoped. This is why instead of leaving during that semester, I had to miss that whole semester of school and come in June instead of going in February or March or April. And everything clicked. Everything I thought a mission was going to be was in the Air Ward. And it grew and grew and grew. They had every person passing the sacrament was a less active who'd come back or a recent convert. And it was just baptizing like crazy. All these people were getting converted, and the bishop just led that effort and was leading the ward of missionary work. And it was absolutely incredible. Andrew Kincaid got baptized, that first baptismal invite from Jake Clark. And it was just incredible to see that ward change and grow. And while I was there, the second transfer I was there, 2 more missionaries joined the ward. So we had 4 missionaries in Air, and then the second transfer we had 6. Because President Frederick's like, yeah, you guys are doing well. You have a bishop on board, you have a stake president on board, Relief Society president. Take more missionaries. We'll reward you with that. And it just kept growing and growing, and it was just incredible to see. And when we went and visited Scotland, we stayed with the Gilardi. So Umberto was the bishop when I was there. He wasn't the bishop when we went back anymore, but his wife Angie and his kids Christiana and Santino were just an awesome family. They came to Utah and visited a couple of times. Met my wife and met my family, my siblings and stuff. And then we went and and stayed with them while we were there. And yeah, so I got to mention a couple other things about this area because they're just so incredible. And sorry, I know you guys probably want to go to bed. I'll wrap it up. But I get there, and the first Sunday I'm there, Bishop Gilardi talks about how Stuart Lang can now speak in church because he's back in the gospel and progressing towards baptism. And I look up at him and realize my first area, I'd met that lady, Jackie Lang, who called my girlfriend, right? And her ex-husband who left the church was Stuart Lang. And now my last area, I'm watching her ex-husband. He'd gotten married to someone else and was getting baptized.
Wow.
And I was like, I just got the chills. And another reason I was like, I am supposed to be here right now. Like, this is incredible from the start of the mission to see this guy change his life, turn it around, get back in the gospel was absolutely incredible. And then his wife, after I came home, his wife got baptized. The missionaries in the other area in Air were teaching his wife. So she got baptized too, which was amazing. And then the Karens were a couple there that were awesome and helped us out a lot. And then the Sharkeys were incredible. George and Eileen Sharkey were awesome, and they would have us over all the time. They were like, I think maybe in their 60s or 70s, but like Sister Sharkey gave me this huge giant painting of a castle that was there near Air, and had me put it in the bottom of my bag and like wrapped it up all nice because this was my last area, and gave it to my mom. So she's like, take this painting home and give it to your mom. And they were just the sweetest people. And so when we went back and visited, when we stayed with the Gilardis, Gilardi invited over the Langs and the Karens and the Sharkeys, and we had like this big party, and like seeing all of them again was just absolutely incredible to see all of them. And they were all like quite a bit older than me and my wife, but we want to be in their friend group. It's like, we want to hang out with you guys all the time because they're hilarious, they're fun, but also so spiritual. And so they're just, the Air Ward was amazing. That was, you're not supposed to say favorites, but that was my favorite. No doubt. That last orb was like everything I wanted a mission to be. And so, it was awesome. And then just so you guys know, I came home a year later. I married Jackie, who had Dear John me. She is my wife now.
No way.
She Dear John me, but I got home and she'd been dating people, but still around. And we started dating again and got married. So she's awesome.
That's amazing. Please tell me you saved the letter that was run over by the car. And
I got it.
It's like a relic of your relationship.
Yeah, going through this stuff, I'm pulling out all the old mission stuff. I do like a Scottish Chad thing with my kids where they're not sure if I'm really Chad or not. They don't really know if I'm like a different person, but I pretend like I'm someone from Scotland visiting, and then the real Chad's somewhere like in the bathroom or not home. So I do that. I started this thing where I do that every conference. Started that last conference and then this conference. So when you guys brought this up, I was like, I got to go get my mission stuff out and check stuff out. And then I put on the kilt and the Jimmy hat and danced around. That's part of the reason I couldn't dress up today. I probably shouldn't have told you that. I didn't dress up because if my kids ever see this, they'll know that I'm really Scottish Chad.
Oh, okay. There you go. That's fair reason.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it. Sorry for the long thing, but I actually wrote some stuff down because I was like, there's so many stories. I know I'm going to miss out too much stuff if I don't.
No, ultimately, you've covered a lot. The question that I have for you, just to kind of come to the end of your mission, is you had to finish your mission as the Fredricks went home, right?
Yeah. So we went into the Pratt's Hill to report back right at the end of the mission. And then I left, and then the Fredricks came home the very next transfer. So they came home, and then we all went, a bunch of missionaries went to their homecoming and saw them. And it was awesome. And then we've been to their house a few times. We went to their house during COVID. We just drove up and pulled up, and President Fredrick was out there. Every time I see people, they're just wearing their G-top. He was out like in his front yard with just his G-top on. and I drove up, and he calls me, my name's Elder Baucom. You got it right, Zack, but he calls me Baucom. Baucom.
Really?
Every time he sees me, he goes, Elder Baucom. And he called me with such force the first few times in the mission, I couldn't correct him. I was like, that's fine. I was like, his son knows how to say my name. And his son, actually, Paul and Andrea, Paul's wife, Andrea, they came over when I was in Iowa and came and had dinner with us in Sterling, or lunch with us in Sterling.
Oh, wow.
Which was really cool. And I keep waiting for Paul to like tell his dad how to say my name, but he hasn't. So all the missionaries would laugh and be like, "Hey, Elder Baucom," and say it with his low, powerful voice. But yeah, they're awesome. Him and Babs, we go see them from time to time, and my wife loves them. They love my wife and our kids, and Babs is always giving them treats and having them go play in the backyard and stuff whenever we have gone over to reunions over there or stop by to say hi. But yeah, they're a great couple. We love the Fredricks.
Huh, that's amazing. Yeah, the reason I asked that is because I watched them come into the mission, and I had them as my mission president um, and wife for my last 6 months of my mission. And so, it's just unique. Like 18 months of my mission were with the Vriens, and then I had that portion with the Fredricks. And so I didn't get to know them very well. I was in leadership and obviously had a couple of instances where I got to be around them, but not enough for them to know me well enough to be like, "Hey, we know you." And I've actually run into them a few times and they didn't remember me, which that's fine.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sure it was the jet lagged portion of them getting into the mission before everything really took off. But I think they're great people and they did a wonderful job. And just hearing your experiences all the more shows the way in which they impacted Scotland, which is really cool.
Yeah, they were incredible, and I think, I came in a year. They'd been there for a year, so they definitely had their feet wet by that point. They had decided the direction the mission was going. That's when we got really into member work and baptizing quickly and all that stuff. So it was like there was a direction, and I'm sure it takes a while to get to that point when you start out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, just to finish up, you've named all of your companions and some great missionaries. Is there anyone else that you can think of that you want to hear from on this mission, on this podcast, as your as an opportunity to call them out that that you're thinking of that you need to send it to?
That's a good question. So yeah, definitely all my companions. I'd recommend all those people. That's a lot, but recommend all them. And I said Shamway, I think.
Yeah.
I would also have on Chad Nilsson.
Okay.
He was awesome. He was a really good missionary. And we were in the MTC together. He was one of the ones that would sing the Star Spangled Banner with me.
Okay.
The national national anthem when we were running around the MTC bothering the Englishmen. Yeah, I think that gives you a pretty good list. All the companions. There's there's plenty of others I think I could mention, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've really given us a feast of things. So thank you so much for taking time. You are a new record holder. I'll just make that statement.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm happy, but also not. That's kind of sad, actually. But
no, here's my thing though, and I'm just gonna. The one thing that we've learned in this whole process is that we're all intertwined in our experience in Scotland, and amazingly, apart from a handful of missionaries that you mentioned, I don't know any of your companions but Elder Coford.
Mhm.
And thinking about the fact that the work carried on for all the time that it did beyond when we got home, and it's just amazing the amount of people that have been there and impacted the people in Scotland, and everyone has their own story. And so that's why we love doing what we're doing, is because we love hearing those stories and reflecting on commonalities and our favorite people. And because they had an impact on us just as much as the land of Scotland did, right?
Mhm.
So more than anything, you've treated us well. We appreciate it. I know that those who are listening will love hearing from you and knowing what you're up to these days. And this is the goal, is just to continue to connect more people and share experiences, and like you said, refresh those memories that will be fleeting at some point in our life, but we've got them recorded and we can listen to them forever, which is awesome.
Yeah,
So
this is great. I'm excited for my kids to listen to this someday, and it's going to be interesting as you go younger and younger. You're eventually going to get to Scotland, Ireland missionaries, right? When it combined about a year after I got home, I think. I don't know if you're
yeah,
crossing that barrier or
I
not.
think we'll cut it off there, because this is the Scotland Edinburgh mission. I'm sorry, no hard feelings there, but we're not going to bridge that gap, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get as many people as we can to go to the
You won't.
reunion they do. We got to go to that reunion. I know the reunion says Ireland now too, but they have that reunion in like Mill Creek or Holiday, Utah, every
Yeah, it's at like the
April
Olympus
conference.
Cove building, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to that in a long time. It's been a minute.
Yeah, we should recruit people and I'll go this year. Because last time I went, it was like me and one other missionary with the Fredricks, and
Yeah.
and some of the older couples that serve missions. So it'd be cool to get a bunch of people to get together and hang out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's obviously one common place, but Jack and I have talked a lot about like where somewhere like middle of the world between all the different English missionaries, and we had missionaries from all over Europe, and we have people from Australia, and you know all these different areas that are how would we all come together at once? It would be a really joyous reunion. But
I think the only thing that makes sense is we got to meet in Scotland.
I think so. I
Yeah,
think that'd be great.
that'd be awesome.
One of the time, maybe in August, go to the military tattoo in Edinburgh all together. Like we could just sell out the whole building. It'd be
Oh, yeah.
unbelievable.
That would be so fun. I'd love that.
Well, Chad, again, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We love you and are so grateful that we have you as one of our brothers in Scotland. So we appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again soon. All right.
Thanks, guys. Great to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Cheerio, mate.
See ya.
Bye.